wait,
Boom, boom. It's on like Donkey Kong.
on like Donkey Kong, baby.
Woo! This is number 7. Number 7's got some cool alchemical kind of situations involved with it, I'm sure.
Yeah. 7.
7, lucky number 7.
Yes. 7 is, yeah, 7 is prime,
7 is
right?
prime.
Yep.
Totally.
Yep. Yep. Prime numbers. Find the prime numbers.
It's
It's easy to
such a
verify prime numbers. It's hard to find the next one.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh my God. There's so much cool shit going on. There's so much cool shit going on. What's going on? Oh, wait. It's so funny because we just did like 2 hours of prep, and
Yeah,
then
we just did 2 hours of life
yeah,
sorting slash chatting.
fucking
You know,
awesome.
it's a
We could.
Saturday.
It's a
We're
Saturday.
hanging out.
We got a big old space of time in front of us. It's lovely. We dude, we could go deeper into those archetypes of the learning spaces, map of map style. I've got that. That's an item that we can hit
Yeah,
play on at any point.
that sounds like a good one.
It'd be super fucking fun. And we could also just shoot the shit and do whatever we want.
Well, I think we should do both.
We should
So
do both.
we should do
Yeah.
both of those things.
You were
Dude, look,
you
we're creating vision for the time in front of us.
Woo!
Yeah,
Dude,
this is how it's done. You don't like plan anything. You just like
we
see
got
what comes into your head.
you roll up
Your
to your
yeah, you
your
roll
local
up to your event.
local restaurant, your restaurateur. You go in and you get your plate and your cutlery and you peruse the buffet. What is on display?
What is on
Buffet.
display? That's why Indian food is so fucking good.
They do it in that
learned
Bolt
how
style.
to how to allow you to sample a lot of different types of food that are
Yes.
similar,
Yep.
but so rich in all their flavors.
So
that's what we
rich.
do with our cure. That's why Indian buffets are great to go to, because food is great.
Food is
And
great.
you get lots of options. That's what we want to. That's what we're creating here in our engine. Except for the engine is not really an engine. It's just this fucking structure in your brain, bro.
It's a structure in
Just
your brain, but it's
just
got all these
electrons bouncing around through these hallways. Oh yeah, I was playing with this. There's this hallway effect on
Yeah.
my Zoom board, and you
Yes.
can like change the decay and the tone. So like how the echo decays down the hallway, and I don't know how to describe what the tone is, but the decay has to do with the decay of the sound in the effect. Anyway, what was I doing with that?
Engine. If you have
Engine.
if each of these little it's each of these little embedded shapes, which are all the platonic solids, each had
all
kind
in one.
yeah, they were like each one represented a process or a set of resources or basically a nexus point where some life was coming together, right? If you get them all moving together in lockstep, if you get them all moving together in a harmonic pattern, it's like an insight or a resource activated on one level then resonates out to the other level. And so a curiosity engine, I think could very much be like creating resonance on one level, but expecting that resonance to move out to the other ones that you can't get your wrench on. You have a wrench that's this size, but there's this giant bolt. So you turn this one, but that one turns too. It's like
dude, I like where you're going with that. That's
yeah.
Like we need to figure out how to
Visualize it.
Create a visualization for all these things. Yep. We're
Dude.
building visualizations, and you've seen us shooting the shit in a lot of these episodes, but we're iterating and building more visualizations, more maps. Yep, that's a good ass. Look at that beautiful picture. Look at that.
And you got it.
Look at that order and that symmetry there.
You got to think about it like they're all moving. They're all like those three-dimensional objects are actually
they're
moving.
Spinning.
Yeah, imagine
it's
that
alive.
in motion.
It's energy. Like you gotta think about how electrons move around protons and neutrons.
Baby,
it's very orderly. It's very erratic, but it's very orderly.
The shape that's in all the carbon atoms in you is identical to all the shape of the carbon atoms in me, is identical to the shape in the carbon atoms all the places, which leads me to believe is there just one carbon atom?
Ooh.
Because it's at one level, it's shape, right?
Ooh, well, it's strings of carbon atoms though. So, what do you one carbon atom? Or what is, well, that's why we have,
Is
there's
it?
a differentiation in chemistry around organic, which is carbon, or not organic. And there's like a huge like separation of worlds based on whether something deals with carbon and can make these chains and have all this order. Oh, yeah. No,
Dude, okay.
that podcast I sent you this past week,
Yes.
Lex Friedman and that Sarah somebody,
Yes.
they had an excellent dynamic in that. I think that they should hang out more. Anyway, that's just my
I
2
loved what
cents.
I love what she was saying, that the rules of life, the way you get life, could be some very simple rules, some very simple ways of addressing natural forces in the universe. And when you play
Right.
those
Well,
rules over and over,
natural
you get
for,
life.
yeah, it's organizing.
Yeah.
Life is the organization, organization of information, and the DNA, these special structures that we have inside of us are like the pinnacles or the backbones by which well, then she's like classifying what life is. There's all this different ways to classify what life is based on like, is life like something that grows out of a planet, or is it like something, is life specific to the planet, or can life, be seeded past, like, and since we don't know, I mean, like, we don't know if we haven't met any aliens. Like, well, yeah, there's some there have these UFO activities that, but it's like pretty in range with how much we think about UFOs as a society and how much like it gets talked about and how many more stories. So are these just like group hallucinations of something in a different dimension, or something like that? So then is life really just like, because if we think about it like that, then life could just be like energy on our growing out of our planet, but then there's multiple dimensions, and that's why people think they're demons. People think that are like
Oh yeah.
all this stuff, because
But
there are things, and you can like kind of slide into these other dimensions in different ways. And oh yeah, no, like
okay.
people
Okay.
having like
I've been, dude,
tangent.
I love these tangents. This is so beautiful. I have been directly experiencing spirits since I was 18 years old. That was the first time that I had a sustained experience of a spirit. And that initial experience has bloomed out into, at one point in my 20s and 30s, I had the radar cranked up to 10. And
Mhm.
there were periods of my time when I would open to just like all that was out there, and it's really overwhelming. And so at this stage of my life, I kind of like to rock the 3 or the 2 or the 1 on the dial. I like to, I use it as a tactical thing when I'm trying to solve an actual problem. Like if there's a problem in a community or a group or a relationship or a business process or anything that's happening in my life, I look for the spiritual causes of it, which are the energetic causes of it. And the kind of shamanic practice that I've done over the years has been very practical and focused on results in the real world and results in my relationships in terms of greater harmony, greater communication, greater love, greater group meaning and participation. So when you say demons and spirits, in my experience, a very, very, very small number of beings are like demonic.
Right.
However, there's fucking spirits everywhere. And so if someone has a completely narrow worldview where any kind of spiritual / energetic activity outside of something with a body, it's the same shit that's running
It
this
could be
body, just
scary to
without the
them.
body. It'll
Right.
freak them the fuck out. It's like from the devil or whatever. And it's really just like,
Right.
no.
And they
There's
can overlay all of their
projections,
projections onto that.
subconscious.
Yeah.
Well, they probably had negative experiences with spirits. Okay, so
Or spent a lot of time thinking about, or had been scripted
yeah.
that there are these scary things out there. And, that's a lot of what, that's why the devil's a red,
A red
yeah,
bull.
a red bull.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Well, that image, yeah, and those images come from certain times, and most of what people think of as hell and the demons and all that, those were literary inventions from Dante and from about a bunch of writing in the Middle Ages, and that was not a part of early Christianity. Early Christianity had its own weirdness. Like, if you ever get deep into the Gnostics, they've got this crazy cosmology. Cosmology meaning the story, the song that holds together their universe. The Gnostics' cosmology about how things work included all these crazy levels with all these powerful things at higher level. What I really like about Western Christianity in general at its heart is that it says there is nothing higher than God. And Islam says that too. And Judaism also says that too. And in its own ways, it's got so much cultural stuff around the Judaism. But that to me,
Right.
that to me is the right way to actually navigate the spiritual world, because you actually carry this super sun-like power inside of you, this golden
Yeah.
source inside of you, and that is the solution to literally every problem, especially in the spiritual world. Like,
Except for you do it through the structure of all these community rules that are reinforced by a lot of other
well,
cultural dynamics
I like the idea
inside your community
if
through those other systems. I see what you're saying. I'm saying, but that's like if you were to like zoom out
yeah,
and
yeah,
say, oh, look at we were seeing how all these people interact and how they're channeling energy.
yeah,
They don't see it. It's not as that simple to them. Like that might be like when they're by themselves, like they feel it that simply,
got to
but
build from there.
they don't accept it that as something that's
It's
that simple. It's like
how much of an
because they've
experience is it?
gone through all the rules and the yeah.
Dude, it's about
That's why those systems create hierarchies that create hypocrisy, that create that. That's why we're forgetting about them.
humans can have a great range of experiences, but it is a limited subset of those experiences that can be discussed in a social context. First, you got to go through language. You got to share a language or a language slash somatic framework with the other person, right? So from the infinite experience, it already steps down a few times. But when you get to the social level of we're running a community here and our community has certain kinds of needs, like we got to defend this part of the border. We've got to pool
Hmm.
these kinds of resources. We got to
Yeah,
maintain
we
our
want to do
family
these
structures
things. We
inside of
want
here.
to
Yeah.
capture our energy and channel it
You can't
in
you
certain
can't
directions.
bring all the perceptions you possibly can have into that experience. That's why it's so easy to overlook and forget your dreams. You have this altered state experience every single night when you go to sleep, and then you wake up, and most people don't even can't e- it is such a cool thing to be able to start sharing from that place whatever details and whatever you can bring back. But think about what you're doing. You're introducing these reality fragments into your other world that you're in with these social people, and therefore it's kind of like a little piece of social art. Like, what does it mean? Where do dreams come from? Why these other
Hmm.
altered states, but we are sharing a dream when we're talking to each other in this social space. So I think you can treat that like one whole world with its own rules, and with the acknowledgement that people go to other worlds like a dream and have whole other experiences. It's this graceful moving between the two buckets that
Yeah,
becomes the skill set, I think.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
agree with that. And that's what I think is that this like these on how do you capture like the interactions that we have, like conversations we have with other people as dreams, and how do you like how do you teach that in a visual way? That's what I've been like thinking about, because
Yeah.
I recently I got a bunch of incense sticks for the first time in my life. I've never had incense before. I was just like, I want some stuff that smells good. And I like stuff that burns.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to fire. Not like a pyro, really,
It's one of these core
but
elements in
it's
life.
like a,
You're
it's
cellular.
like,
You are fire captured at the cellular level. That's why you can move
yeah,
around.
I like constructing fire and being
Fun.
outside and stuff like that. So then I was like, well, yeah, burning these little sticks, that sounds awesome. So I got some, but then it's been like, yo, the like burning a stick of incense is like and having a conversation is like having it's like a whole nother sensual layer
Yeah.
to like to the experience that you're having,
Yeah.
and it's consistent. Plus, smoke is fun as fuck to watch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like this, dude. Something is actively being consumed right next to you. I think that's a powerful. I don't know. Like we are energy. We are consuming. Every part of life is consumption, and it's like this little catalyst. It's like this little dream just getting burned away right
I heard
next to
this.
you.
I heard this rap by this physicist. He was a guy who worked for some big tech company like a Google or something, and he was physics in his training, and he was doing something else, and he was talking at this conference, a 99% conference, and I'll send you this link. And he was telling this beautiful story about physics and what it kind of reveals. And the thing he was talking about how when you're talking about just the atoms in your body, so you can radiologically track atoms. You can basically get subtly radioactive atomic particle. There's tagging technologies you can use to watch atoms move in and out of a space, out of a being. You can 17% of your body mass moves in and out every day. That's your arm. So your fucking arm worth of weight in your body moves into your body and out of your body every day. But it's not like it's like a sparkle inside you, a constantly refreshing sparkle. Hey man, where do these new atoms come from and where do those other ones go? Well, respiration, you breathe out a lot of you.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also other ways it leaves through perspiration, all these other things. The stuff coming in comes in through what you're smelling. So literally, if there's flowers in this meadow, this is his story. I forget the guy's name to give him credit. But if you are smelling flowers in a meadow, those actual atoms are becoming you for a while, and then eventually you're breathing them out and they become part of something else. Dude, that means that you're a process. All this, draw a line around it and there's a you. It's like 17% of you is going to warp out of here today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yo, that is a good analogy to like
thinking about it as a flow, not as an
layers of
object.
change
Yeah.
that we're experiencing now through the internet in terms of our groups, our collective social hallucination that is the internet. And like whatever news is, whatever our group hallucination thinks the news is.
The way that memes work, like somebody on CNN says something crap and then it becomes a meme or whatever, and then like it like is stuck in everybody's brain. Those are energetic structures. Those are shared neural structures where you're running the same software as other people. This thing you, me, and Bruno were talking about, the Jubilee, it's like if you flush out the pipes from the inside out regularly, you basically become more immune to someone else grabbing some soft part of your consciousness and then making an imprint in it. Like put that in me, and now you're stuck inside their firmware. If you're feeling that shit, if you're feeling that shit from the inside, you're a little bit freer. You're a little bit freer. You've gotten your hands on the controls a little bit more.
This is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
I think it's a good metaphor too. It's like look inside for the real truth and the real answer.
Be in control of be the originator of all of your intentions.
You asked
Don't let someone else hack your intentions.
It's your life force, dude. It's your willpower. It's your God gave you this one life channel that you have access to now, and it will change when you die. You'll still have the spiritual one, the energetic one, but you won't have the physical one. And if you spend no time thinking about the differences between those in life, it's going to be very confusing when you're like, no more body. You're like, wait, what? It's just like life, but I'm not in a body. It's like, you and everything else go through that experience. So in any event, there is a very practical way I think people can just get in touch with. They can get in touch with the actual center of the fountain. The fountain has a natural force that moves it. What is moving? What is that force? That is in my book, that is the Holy Spirit. That is the energy moving through all things. And the more of it you have, the more flexible and resonant you can be, the more you can learn, the more you can explore, the more you can adapt to your environment. Technology is changing everything, so it's adapt or die. But everybody knows this, especially in the West. It's like we're just lashed to this engine that's going into the future, and it's all about taking care of each other so that thing doesn't tear us to pieces.
Yeah, Yep. Our own mass doesn't get too big and too obtuse and start
Yeah,
blowing off chunks.
blowing off chunks. Dude, you were talking about how do you, a couple paragraphs back, you were talking about how do you learn this shit? How do you set a stage? A stage is a stage is a space in our imagination. It starts in the imagination, the space of a church, the space of a doctor's office, the space of a park. These are archetypes in
We're
our,
literally constructing those when we build things in real life.
they start as a dream. It's a
That's why
dream-like idea.
that's why this
Yeah.
past week I have delineated in my mind that I'm not interested in physical asset management as like part of my life. Like I've spent a lot of time managing projects and
Yeah.
physical
Yeah.
jobs where physical things in the we change the outside world. All
Mm.
right. 98% of people do that. No, not really. Horrible stat. Everyone knows how to do that. All
Yeah.
right. And
To different
everyone,
degrees.
yep, to different degrees. And we now are in a new age where there we're trying not to blow chunks, all right? And we need more people paying attention over here in this non-physical asset class of order and structure and sharing that because we're now spinning way faster than we have before. Life, the cycle of information, we're so connected to it, is so strong now that everyone's gonna get sucked in. We have to what was okay that got you by knowing in life 20 years ago or in the school that I went through
Yeah.
doesn't cut it no more. This is like these kids nowadays,
These
like
kids
you're
nowadays.
drone, you're gonna be a drone if you listen to everything that the old system has told you, because the real world spins so much faster now that you're gonna be they're gonna have this bottle of drip feed of entertainment in your mouth. You just be sucking on it, doing everything you're told. Or you can grab life by the balls, capture all of your intentionality at these jubilees, and fucking
It's a
be
theme.
the arbiter of your own destiny, baby.
That's it.
Be the conduit for uh of energy that God can use positively in the world.
Yeah. And inspiration from inside means that the structure will be self-sustaining because it's built on firm ground, as Jesus would say, right? When it's coming from the inside out, it's firm ground because guess what's going to be there at every moment of your life? The inside of you. Like that's the actual part of you. That's
the only part that like
that's the only part that will.
persists.
That's right. That's everything else
Where,
will
like,
change.
Yeah, cut your arm off, you breathe in and exhaled, and pissed and shit out that much mass for
That
every day.
100%, 100%. And we sort of solve problems with the object toolkit, right? Nothing solid things out there. Every
Yeah.
single thing that you can lay your hands on was something else before, and it'll be something else after. Especially,
right, and we're trying to automate to implement all of that shit anyway, and now all of those degrees are popping out. They're like, if you're gonna go out and if you want to have a technical degree, you be technical, have like your 8 hours that you clock in and clock out, be doing something technical and actually have an impact. You need to be like mechatronics or electrical something, and that can even go all the way to construction.
yeah,
Or do the actual mechatronics and get into like programming and maintaining and upkeeping and designing robots essentially.
yeah.
or
You're talking
or
about,
just fucking code and build internet structure for the internet, because we need so much structure, and we need structure made by the individual communities, not by this is a toolkit that everyone like learning how to code isn't a joke anymore. like you need to learn how to code to be able to
Speak the language
understand
of the machines.
understand how the world works now. This is a new speak
Yeah.
the language of the machines is exactly right.
Speak the language of the self-learning algorithms that are coming for us.
Yeah, coming for us. Well, you have a bunch of self-learning algorithms inside of you pretty much.
Dude,
Mechanisms.
in the
And
please
they make a lot of sense
continue.
when you start observing them, but you kind of have to be able to get to a point where you have enough time to give a shit about what the inside of your body feels like. Yeah, to control some of your other needs and responsibilities.
Mastery at
Yeah.
every level, right? Mastery.
At every
And
level.
that social level, that outer level where you go to work and you're a magician or a warrior, right? You're like the magician has the technology. And so the technical skill set that you have determines how powerful you can be in the world. With an infinite technical skill set, you could do anything. You could probably run this place. I mean, but you could run it. You could decide if it was going to be social control for all people or if it was going to be like liberation from the inside out for all people. But you'd make that, you'd be the one making that choice. And so dude, Dune. I put that Dune audiobook
Oh,
in our
yeah.
shared library this last week.
Mhm.
We're going to take a break after this Curiosity Engine, and I'm going to go back
We
and
got to
backfill.
7.
Got to 7. I'm
We're
going to backfill
backfill.
all resources and all
Mhm.
errata. There's all kinds of mistakes we make and like facts we barely get right, but
Yeah.
the intention's always there. But there's like you could tweak little technical details about. Anywho, the
Yeah.
Dune.
We got to figure out how to not spend too much time. And I think
Yeah.
how that cycle.
How
'Cause
could
we
that be
gotta be able
fun?
how it can be fun and fast. And we've
Fun and
talked
fast.
about this in other
Yes.
conversations that we've had.
Totally.
But we gotta work on some other
Labor of love.
content outputs too.
Yeah.
So we have lots of things that we dream about. We got 7 on the Curiosity Engine. We're gonna play with it on the
Rock
back
Chalk
end.
Jayhawk.
And then we'll be
Exactly.
back.
And
back.
dude, so we've got to download everything because we might not get one of these for a couple of weeks. So we've got to like really plug it in. I want to tell you about the 2 times I saw a UFO. I also want to tell you about, okay, so I put Dune in the library. The way that the Dune universe starts, when David Lynch made his Dune movie, he created this intro that actually gets into the philosophy that is hinted to or barely mentioned one line in Dune. But then Frank Herbert, after that, wrote all these prequels and postquels, like his son did after him too. So the way that the Dune universe starts, I forget the year is 21351. It's some deep time in the future. This is after this thing called the Butlerian Jihad. There's
Butlerian.
Yeah, there's this. I think I'm getting it wrong, but that was one of the named ones. Okay, so this is written in the 50s before, in the 60s before everybody was afraid of the desert people of Islam, over there in the Middle West. Now we've been in a terrorist war with people shaped like that for 20 years. Everyone, it's like allergic to talk to.
Maybe
so
Dune manifested it.
Well, they had this. The Islam is a warrior culture, and that warrior attitude is what Frank Herbert writes into the Fremen in Dune. Okay, I'm burying the lead again.
Burying the lead.
Burying the lead.
The stage.
There is
the imagination. Let's go.
This revolution, this galactic revolution takes place where here's what happens: men make machines. Powerful men control the machines. Powerful men use the machines to control everybody. The entire universe is enslaved.
And that's what the fuck is we're building with these AIs now. And that's why it's incredibly important that we understand and can speak the language of the machines.
Totally. So the way that they solve the way they solve
their own machines to fight back.
Dude, that's the intermediate stage. If they've got machines, you want machines. Yeah.
But that's why we have guns. These are virtual guns. We have to build our own structure guns, or other structure will eat us.
People are so silly. Do you know what people were using to kill people before they had guns? Other methods.
Yeah, other methods.
You can always fall back on
cliffs.
Poison and sharp sticks and rocks and
there's other
foul
needs,
language.
Like you didn't have to just stop them dead in their tracks. You could starve them to cut off their supply to food, cut off their
torture everyone they love.
yeah, steal things that they
Need
they have psychological connection to, take them away.
tribal warfare, baby.
Threaten them in different ways. There's all sort, and that's the way that's what systems influence, because you're a bunch of systems, and now we have a way to interact with these systems, and they're hacking them with their attention. They're just like, ooh, give us your attention. And that's a direct hack into writing just scripting bullshit onto your scripting noise right over your, just get you
Dude,
all
if you
soggy and drunk.
you do not want to be on the receiving
unmotivated.
You do not want to be on the receiving end of tribal level violence. Like being on the receiving end of the Comanches was the death sentence for all kinds of people.
It was a sentence to like the Hunger Games.
Like, it's like you're gonna die fast and terribly, maybe slowly and awfully.
Terribly, or and maybe you take some people with you, but you're gonna die because there's the numbers game.
It's gonna be 10 to 1. It's gonna be 10 to 1 on the deaths, or 100 to 1, 20 to 1, 30 to 1, and you're gonna know that when you die, like you're just one more to me, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
You're gonna get to go down. You get to go down knowing that you just, dude. Although back then, and it was the frontier. History is gonna look at you like a stat, and we need to think about that when we think about how we want to be done and seen in history. We got, what stats do we want to fall in? The people that do the big things for the most people are the ones that are remembered, good or bad. But you'll be remembered much longer for good than bad. Yeah, much.
Or
you'll get completely deleted, depending on
if you win or not.
The influence that you and the good that you have created for the people in the time that you did influence.
That's it.
Fuck it, whatever. Even if you get deleted.
Joseph Salk could have become like the world's first millionaire/billionaire back when he developed the Salk vaccine that cured polio. And think about it. It was like suburban kids in pools. Fecal matter from one kid would get in the pool water that would transmit it to the other kids. These kids would become paralyzed for life, and they couldn't breathe. And these iron lungs, it was a terrible disease. Imagine if that was the pandemic we just went through. And in this terrible state of fear, with everybody bottling up, he finds the cure, and he could have charged for it. He gives it away. Yeah. That will be remembered for forever.
Yeah.
That shit.
Not what
therefore he saved more people.
These vaccines.
Exactly, like they gotta make that money. Make that money.
It's like this corporate, this cross between government.
Do you have a little jar of
same things?
Do you have a jar of like black pills? You like break up on black pills and then you lay out lines and you're like,
no, I'm incredibly aware of black pills. I see, but I like to keep them as black pills. I don't do lines of black pills, but I collect black pills.
As teaching tools?
As teaching tools for myself and perspectives for myself.
I hear you.
I collect black lenses. All right. So I have a bunch of black lenses that are labeled different things, and then I can pull out.
Well, unfortunately, the view of the people with their hands on the wheels of power, Federal Reserve, government corruption, violence, organized crime, monopoly of markets and capital, like those are some pretty dark glasses. So it makes sense. Yeah. You got to put on the glasses. It has like 0.001% light through and be like, how are these people treating humans? It's like, that explains why it's working like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. You just have lenses that tweak the incentives,
what the goal
in different ways, and you just have examples of how it actually works in the real world. You're not creating your own. You're just like, it works like this in this way. I'll have that lens that I can pull up and look at, and then look at other systems through that and like compare and contrast.
These dark shady systems, like the dark shady system that is the Federal Reserve, like how do you navigate in a place with no lights? It's like they've built a cellar in the ground with no lights in there, and it's like, wait, what? Like,
or any what is Q deep state Q.
That's a
all of
mind,
that
a psyop,
stuff.
a psyop to
Yeah.
take all the people. It's a psyop to take all the people on the quote right who might have
It's
become the
just pa-
fuel for a
it's just
January
power
6th and
tools.
get them out of there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, it
but
become the fuel for January.
distract the crazies. People can
Yeah.
rally. Joan of Arc probably had some,
Oh yeah.
you know,
No, and what are they
crazy
doing? They're creating the
rally.
crazy. Like how it like what was it? Like there was something I don't want to get into that bullshit. Fuck all that.
Okay.
No, you don't need it. We don't need to do lines of black pills. This is the Curiosity Engine.
Dude,
alright?
I
we
have
only
been.
talk about the lenses that black pills provide us in the Curiosity Engine. We like to keep it. We like to have lenses, not
Well, there is
like
there is
I don't know.
there
I
is
don't want to like discuss that shit.
there is always going to be a reason to see something positively, and there's always going to be a reason to see something negatively. Like you can take both sides of the equation in almost any view that you have, right? So it's I think it's actually helpful to see the negative example in many cases because it reveals that essentially if you spend too much time on that side, it's going to be like a slingshot that like whacks you over to the other side, right? But there is a positive view of any situation. And like even when people go through incredible isolation, torture, pain, all this kind of stuff, real bad shit, they can still find a way to make it work for them in the moment. I think that's the eternal truth. I think it actually does require a period of time when you analyze what's not working, and you got to label it correctly, right? You got to do that work to figure. You got to like snort some black pills to like figure out what that feels like, and you're like, oh, I feel so awful.
To try drugs,
when
kids.
It's important to try drugs, comma kids. Identify the audience in that statement. Dude, I'm just busting your ass. I'm just busting your ass.
Oh, good.
Okay. So
like
the way they handle this, the people make machines, people make intelligent machines, strong men take the intelligent machines and use it to enslave the universe. Right. The way they break that is they're like, no more thinking machines. That's a law. We're going to kill you and everybody you know if you've touched that shit. And then what we need computing. So they created two mystery schools. One mystery school was focused on the purely technical, and that was the Spacing Guild, like the physicists. The other one was the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, all women, and was focused on the psychological or the political manipulation and endeavors of humankind. And they had these two lines, and one with the architects post Butlerian jihad in the Dune universe.
In Dune. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry. In Dune.
No.
Sorry.
I'm Mr. Tangent, so
no problem.
There's be reminded of where I am.
I love it. We want active LiDAR for the concepts, right? Like
yeah.
or really good visual tracking
in creating context.
Yes.
So good. My short-term memory is ass.
So the universe of Dune starts way in the future after all this shit's already gone down. And these two schools have been established for hundreds of generations, and they are doing all this stuff, right? So what the insight is that humans can perform the computer function. You don't need a machine to do what machines do. You can become a goddamn human computer. That's their story that they're pursuing, and they pursue it through the use of extremely powerful, psychologically active psychedelic drugs. That's the spice. The spice allows this one technological wing of society to master time and space. They can't write it down for you, but they can fold space. They can take your infinite amount of matter from over here and put it over there for you, which means that you can spread out through the universe. And they guard that secret, like the guild guards that secret. No one knows. They got some ideas about how it might work, but
that sounds cool as shit.
And they're not happy for it. They mutate into these horrible floating brains. And David Lynch does a really good job. Well, they're not human anymore. There's something else. They're computational things that can and then there's there's the mentats. The mentats are the human computers. They're the ones that become the human processing computers, and the guild are the people that do the I'm getting my Dune messed up. But yeah, the Bene Gesserits are the ones that master the somatic. So the Bene Gesserits are like the yogis. They basically can go down to like their molecular level and grab and manipulate things in other people. Like they can create poisons in other people with their intention and things like this. And they have mastered perception and focus to this degree that they can essentially operate in a world above the regular humans. So there's the massive society, and then there are these specially trained consciousness ninjas that can essentially work the threads of power and control above the humankind to keep it going in a certain direction. And this, my friend, is the stage in which Paul Atreides is born and becomes the Kwisatz Haderach, the universe's super being, and fulfills this thing. And he frees everybody from this. He's like, enough. And he gets to, so there's an early stage with these this war that has to happen with these humans in control of machines. Then there's this middle stage where humans master this shit, and there are these two bloodlines that move through the Harkonnen and the Atreides bloodlines. And spoiler alert, Paul's a result of both of those coming together. One generation before, the powers that be were going to have control of it and just keep the status quo with this super being. He hits it a generation before, and then writes the script for everyone, just like a Jesus. He's a Christ figure. He opens it up and he's like, the source is inside you, go find it. Like,
yeah, let's fucking do it.
Yeah.
This is the yep.
Anyway, Dune's deep as shit. And
so much there.
So much there. And what's really cool, there's levels. And there's been so much good art made from it. That new Dune movie, October 1st, Friday morning, wake and bake. We got to have all of our structure and some kind of cool community in place by that time, so we can wake and be waken and boken with our friends of Loken.
We will have some sort of people to hang out with by then, for sure.
100%. That will be so, dude. That is like a well you can go to over and over again, and people have for a generation. They've gone to Dune.
I need to start this book.
You've got the full audiobook on our shared library, brother. And I gave you a single file that has the whole thing, and then I gave you it by chapters if you want to find it individuals. You got both levels.
I probably will do that.
Dude, don't take your time. It's weirdly written.
It's weirdly written.
Well, it was an original sci-fi.
I can take stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It was original sci-fi, which means that people read that, got inspired, and then wrote badass sci-fi. Like, you can pick up a copy of something that was written like last week, and it's like 6th gen sci-fi. It's like, learn the lessons of the past. This is 1st gen. This is so you will see rough edges.
Yeah, that's good. No, I see like a lot of, like, as you were describing certain things through that.
Yeah,
I was seeing a lot of cartoon sci-fi, like, from the last 10 years.
Yes.
Part of my visuals. So like a lot of these amorphous brains that control time. That's in Rick and Morty. Those two guys that go around beating up people who fuck with time.
Yep.
You fuck with time, motherfucker.
Time cops.
Time cops.
It's awesome. It's such an awesome idea. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's so good. Oh, I'm so sorry to do this. We need some Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, where are you?
Yeah, you muted?
Oh my God, I'm totally muted. What a bad transition. Dude, I just had a conversation with you that you didn't hear. I'm so sorry. I thought you were just being super chill.
I am super chill naturally.
You're super chill. I was like, wow, he's just not taking any of my conversational forks in the road. I was like, that's cool. We'll just keep going down this one. And I was like, that's cool. I was like really getting in a receptive mind state. But I was just on mute.
He's like transitioning this whole tune. Yeah, you shouldn't if I'm talking out my ass, you
I might want to check if I'm on mute. Oh no. Well, this is great. I think the integration, and you bring up so much cool stuff. I have so many notes that are just like threads that could build on what you're saying. But 1000%. Dude, on a scale of 1 to the color blue, young Peter, how elevated are you?
1 to the color blue? Oh, dude. I'm at a solid, like,
banana Swiss cheese sandwich.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me get it switched to 1 to 10 scale, because I don't know what this other scale is.
It's a creative scale. It lets you. There's a
Yeah.
lot in between. There's a
I
lot
don't
in
know
between.
what's just too much for me.
Just our home audience can calibrate their
Yeah,
watches.
so I on a color scale of blue to infinity,
Blue to toothpaste.
I'm a blue to toothpaste. I am a fern next to a
fern.
trail, just
Woohoo!
taking some
Woohoo!
sunlight. Yeah.
I love it. A fern taking in sunlight. That's great. I
The
love
one
it.
every dog sniffs but doesn't pee on, you know.
Exactly. They see it and recognize it's like, this is a living being like me. I'm
Yeah.
Caninus primarius,
Yeah.
and this is Fernicus wonderophilus.
Yeah, Wonderophilus.
I think we're
Exactly.
I think we're cool, Fern. I think we're cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and in translation to a 1 to 10 scale, I'm like a 6.5. I'm very nice. I'm right where I like
Nice.
to be
That's
on
lovely.
a morning, having a conversation.
That's lovely. I'm 8.9. And I can see
8.9.
the wall that is 10 from
Yeah,
where I'm
but
sitting.
you're on top of a mountain in a constant rocket ship position, so you know, uh, Paul doesn't smoke the same. All right, we're talking about clout here. All right.
Clout. You tell him what I do while I raise my blood sugar. Here we go.
While you raise the blood sugar, just the he's a stoner engineer out here. You know, there's tools that have been developed to there's pathways to ingest chemicals in the cleanest ways possible, and people have developed great tools, and so there's incredible engineering and incredible science and processes, clean, simple processes happening here to ingest these
I live
weeds.
I live in the space and interdimensional crystalline capital of Denver, close by.
Yeah.
And there are some
Crystalline capital
yeah,
of Denver.
crystal capital of the spectrum of light. It's
Yeah.
like the spectrum of light has a temple in Denver that is collectively shared amongst some
Yeah.
really powerful wizards here. And
Wizards.
our weed tech is strong.
Our weed tech is strong, man.
Our weed tech is strong. And there will come a day when these libraries of crystalline knowledge laid out on spectral paper will be in demand throughout the
Yeah.
land. Everybody will be like, how does weed work? Go to the place they've
Yeah.
been doing it a long time.
So I have learned about all of these structures of ingestion,
Yeah.
but I am a good old
Good
Southern
old boy.
boy
Love
out
it.
here in the woods of Tennessee,
Bang bang.
poking holes in apples and tinfoil and
Reminds me of my youth.
making ghetto ass little bubblers
Totally.
with hot glue and corks and straws.
I've smoked out of a lot of a lot of like beer cans in my day. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I always liked bubblers, or I would roll. But we would make all sorts of types of
Totally.
bubblers in one hitter and like G-bongs and stuff like that.
For my brother-in-law had a birthday a couple years ago, and I got him he lives in California, so this was completely a joke. It wasn't necessary because they have good tech, and they used to have good tech. I wonder how it is these days out there. But
They probably still do.
they probably still
It's
do.
all who you know.
It's all who you
All
know.
who you're connected to. The
All who you're
stores
connected to.
you know are out there and available.
It was a book about how to build a bong with stuff you can find around your house, except it was the dopest version of that I'd ever seen. So literally with like a handsaw and some plumbing, they were like gravity bongs, all this different, it was just like they were getting deep.
That's a cool book.
That's a cool book. It's going in the library. It's going in the library. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, but
definitely.
It's nice when it gets legal and there's a market and you let people smoke weed. They get very creative very fast. So like the rate of innovation is so fast that I like the regular dispensaries that I go to legally as a medical marijuana patient. Like when I go through that process, literally from one time to the next time that I go to the place, the whole game has changed.
The whole game has changed.
And they're like, the
There-
job of the bud tender is to keep you up on what's happening. Like what's
Yeah.
like here's the from the front lines, here's what's going
Yeah.
on. And it's like you hear about these great battles on the plains of Denver Cannabis Coliseum of competing ideas of purification methods and distillation properties and
Yeah.
ways of laboratory testing to a higher degree. And it's just like it all is it's what a market should be, which is a competition of ideas.
Gosh.
I know.
I
It's gladiator
need to go
sports,
spectate.
cannabis style.
I need enough money to be able to go spectate these Olympics
Totally.
and participate in the feedback.
Exactly. Exactly. There is a it is a wonderful little it's a beautiful ecosystem. And that's just like to your point, what we were talking about a little bit earlier, when it's all legal like that, you can have a very open conversation about effect and purity and source. And when you can have that conversation, it can become a medical conversation. Like, what do you need for like your ails and the way you want to use it?
Yeah.
And then there's each approach for each one of those areas. You could really focus in on a delivery system that worked well for you and kept you cognitively sharp when you need to be at work. And when's the time you do math and when's the time you don't do math. You can start structuring activity into buckets. And one of these buckets can be, well, you can get high and do that thing, and you can actually do it a little bit better. But it's in collaboration.
What things you can do high.
Yeah, exactly. High tasks and non-high tasks.
Yep.
And honestly, the better you get at it, the better both sides of the equation get, because you spend your time when you're down really focusing and kicking ass and taking names and figuring out just getting everything taken care of, which makes it a guilt-free experience to be high.
Let go and just be like, woo!
It doesn't matter that I can't do that right now. I'm focused on some other things I can do much better that I don't even think about in these other. So it's what it's always been. And that's what coffee is. When coffee and tea came into the coffee and the tea shops of Europe, we got the Enlightenment, which gave us science and ultimately birthed the Constitution and the experiment of democracy that's the United States of America, right? That all comes from tea and from be able to correctly use the caffeinated state of consciousness at certain times to achieve your goals. Essentially, it was like a technology, it was like a consciousness technology, very shamanic, like how that all goes down. So I don't think Americans need to be worried about cannabis at all, because quite frankly, we deal with caffeine, which is addictive. And we deal with tobacco, which is very addictive, one of the most addictive ones. And we deal with alcohol,
everything you
which
put
is
in your
violent
body,
as fuck in a lot of cases. Like
everything you put, definitely.
Cannabis is the easy one in this quaternity.
Easiest one.
It's the easiest one.
Easiest
It's the one you're gonna have the least
most
problem
benefits.
with. Yeah. And it's also it was a
But
medicine.
just like everything else in
years.
life requires structure around
structure.
the person consuming it.
That's right.
And so that's what we're about here, about the Curiosity Engine. God, guns, and glory being God's second book, which is a book of nature, which is whatever you ingest and whatever you're putting into your body, whatever your nature. Glory, life is glory.
Absolutely. We were talking about stages, right? You get the stage right in your imagination first, and then you get it right in the physical world, and then you can actually enter onto the stage. And when you enter the stage, that's a consciousness change. That's going from one frame, this is the world, to now I'm on the stage. Now I've got a role to play here, and I've got a new consciousness frame. The careful curation of this kind of stage tech could definitely crack the personal education issue of like, how does one take control of one's own learning process and successfully navigate it, and it produces good fruit. It produces good fruit. Which
is what I'm fascinated by.
Yes.
100%.
Dude, we could definitely
figuring out that stuff. That's what the world needs. That's what they need to figure out. Need some way to just funnel people into some personal structure, because we have the tools to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Now, for
sure. Well, do you want to play? Want to play around with that idea for a little bit? You want to do a little trip?
What's it called? Yep.
Let's take a little
A
journey.
map of maps. This is where we're going.
And this is where our community is located at too. And depending on when you
Yes.
listen to this, if you listen to this in like 2035, we might have been wiped off the map. In the great heat wave of 2028, we might have all died down here. Who knows? Maybe you're living in the
knows?
asteroid belt.
Yeah.
But
That 2028 is the end of this turning.
woo! How do
The
you
next turning?
based on what the rotation of what
The
heavenly bodies?
fourth. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just talking about the book, The Fourth Turning.
Oh, is that like a sixth extinction event kind of thing, or is
No,
it?
it's just like every 80 years we have cycles, and
Oh yeah,
the
solar
yeah, we're in a crisis cycle right
crisis
now,
cycle.
starting in 2008, pretty much, and going till 2028. And
If
so
things are
you
gonna
have a
calm down, that'd be lovely.
crisis, then you have
Resolution.
yeah, it's like a crisis, enlightenment,
A
or
response.
awakening, enlightenment, and so there's 4 different cycles, and we'll put a video in one of the good old Casey Neistat's brother Van's video talking about the fourth turning. He did a
Dude,
book report video about the book.
Do you think it would be possible to backing this up? Oh, this is a little too early.
This
But
guy.
do you think it would be possible? Okay, once you sort of, this is my vision for this. But the principles of learning are archetypical. They can be applied in all kinds of different ways. So how you do it doesn't matter, but what you do does matter. And what you're doing is, if you really do get a hold of your own personal learning process, and you can really set your sight on a new project or a new technology that you want to acquire, and then you can go through the cycle, the cycles, the play necessary to engage with that so that it is now yours, and you practice it for years, and now you become a master in this area, something that people would count on you to do in your personal sphere or pay you to do in your public sphere, right?
Yeah.
Like if you could go through that process, those principles could be created in a number of different ways. I'm wondering what it looks like to have like a protocol. Like, what if you and me right now today went on a media diet where we consumed no crazy fast twitch media, and we went all deep, and for a couple of days we just steeped ourselves in some awesome set of knowledge, but the goal was to go deep. I was going to go deep on some shit, you were going to go deep on some shit, but we made this agreement to sort of detox from all of the interference. And then
fucking noise.
Can you imagine if you could get on a call with these little cubes that we're all in, and there was like 12 guys or people, mixed group, you could do it in all sorts of different configurations, and you could basically, every one of them was like ninja, like warrior committed to like maintaining a certain dude, the shit they would have to say about their world and about that would be so human. It would be like a little mini experiment, right? It would be such a
experiment you can do, like with the people around you. It's just the structure. You're just like propagating these environments, like letting people know that it's possible to attain.
Okay, now imagine that you're in these cubes, and now there's 100 people in the room. And what the software does is it knows how to put people together for certain kinds of things. So now you have a structure. So you're going to be, you're in this room with this one person, you're each are going to share something. You would have this, there could be a way of making a technical layer to it that would automate sort of the human aspect, not sell you toothpaste. Like it would actually help you make connections.
There would be, you could have visual representation of how it's automatically doing, like here's all the decisions that were made to put these two people together could be trackable and it should make sense.
If you could have a set of tools that would, if you could then control those things at a very basic level, like you can control electricity in a light switch, light on, light off, state on, meaning there's 2 people in a group, state on, there's 3 or 4 people in a group, state on, you've all identified interests, and then it's connecting you somehow. You just have to make it organic in a certain way, but you could make this would be the basis for like a social learning game that would be software enabled, and then you might be able to scale, because it's so personal and it's so direct.
To scale, because you could teach
maybe
the needs to scale inside of it.
If it's coming from inside of everyone, everyone has an inside. If you have one teacher and 30 students, that's weird configuration. It's
Yeah,
like, but if the teacher is inside and you're learning from the inside out and the environment is helping you structure that in a meaningful way, there's fruit on the
right.
tree. There are skills that are deployable in the future. Like that's
Yeah,
real learning, right?
but if you have a teacher
Yeah.
and inside the structure of the community and some of the entry mechanisms, like the learn like a learning mechanism, and then the environment automatically provides the other component, and then a teacher can propagate knowledge. Any teacher can easily propagate knowledge because they propagate it to one person in that package, and that person should be able to easily, or there'll be certain people who are better at being other, like transferring knowledge to other people inside of the community, and that'll be, that's fucking how people in any community operate. There's
Yeah.
certain people that teach. That's why the kids hang out with the old people next to the gate and stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Or like Asian cultures
Yeah.
have communities with common spaces where uh uh yeah, kids hang out and play, and so the old people watch the kids and they
Enjoy it.
relax and enjoy
Yeah.
the setting pretty much.
And the young people enjoy having the attention paid to them
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they are actually in the process of needing to focus quite closely on what they're doing because they're learning for the first
yeah,
time how to do some of this shit, right? That's
right.
I love that natural teaching you're describing there, man.
Mhm.
Like it's a natural human thing. It happens all over the place. If you essentially free it up from these constraints of, oh, it's got to be this kind of a shaped room and this kind of a shaped chair
Yep,
and this kind of a,
yep.
you break all that down, let's like dissolve it. Like
Mhm.
it is play. And all this shit comes from I was reaching out for something to make to make some of my insights or my intuitions about teaching make sense. And I found this book, The Science of Maria Montessori. And there was like 10 scientific principles that Maria Montessori had discovered in the 1900, like 1902, intuitively about teaching that she encoded before there was science around it. But then they did a
Mhm.
ton of science to actually validate this stuff. And so the
Right.
book goes through each idea and says, this is the concept that she intuitively understood, which really works when you put it into practice. And here might be the why of the science that might support it. And so the science of Maria Montessori and play, play in mammals, all mammals, is identical to learning. What we call learning, when learning actually happens, it is the same neurological state as play. So
Mhm.
all mammals do this. A small little baby chipmunk plays with its environment to figure out where the food is and where the water is and where the hawks are and where the protection is. And it learns all this stuff by play. And if you ever raise a little dog or cat, you know this. They
Yes,
play
yes.
to figure out their limits, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
also to explore,
That's what
to
my dog has taught
map
me a
their
lot
environment.
this last year.
Yeah. Yeah. They have,
Incredibly amazing feedback. Has taught me so much about like
yeah.
the aura that I wield.
Yes, I love that, dude. That's the benefit of teaching, the benefit of being a parent on one level, right? Is to, when you
Yeah.
take responsibility, there's actually a benefit both sides if you really pay attention to it. If you bring your heart and your soul to the job of raising another being or whatever, then it activates your creativity, it activates like creative resources, and you engage with it. When you engage
Mhm.
with it, it's actually quite fun and pleasant and works pretty well, and you get a lot out of it, just like what you're saying. Like there's so this that's a good, I think that's a nice principle of a good classroom. But
Yeah.
intrinsic, Maria
Yeah.
Montessori was all about those impulses for what to do
Play.
next. Instead of it being scripted in a set of bullet points, like first you learn this and you learn this, it's just like
Yeah.
you're going to want to learn how to write. So what
Yeah.
we're going to do is we got a bunch of activities, there's like 10 of them. It's like these kinds of activities you might be drawn to and do 1,000 times more than these other ones, because you actually need to develop the small motor
Mhm.
skills or the cognitive connection to the concept of a letter when you're learning how to read and shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's good
Dude, I
stuff.
love how specific you can get with your examples. These are good. These are good. Yeah.
Nice,
Gotta keep
nice.
throwing out stuff like that. Yeah.
This guy
Nice.
is one of my personal heroes. This guy is David Thornburg. And David Thornburg was present when the mother of all demos went down. And I'm going to butcher this story because I didn't review it, but reviewing it helps because it's a complicated story and it involves acid. And as with every story that involves acid, you can definitely look at it from a couple of different angles.
Yeah. Yep. And as you play with those ideas, there's even more angles to explain.
It's like you're not actually looking at an object, but more like a prism with many dimensions. And as you rotate it, it refracts the light of reality
So
in more.
how long have you been thinking about this guy's story? So we're seeing how long this light has bounced around inside Prism as it comes out here.
2015, around 2015.
First time you read this book.
I read this book in probably 2018. 2017, but I had run into his informations in other veins.
Informations, yes.
Yeah, they were. I was bumping into his ideas because he inspired a whole generation of educators to think about what role technology plays in the student's life. And one of these high level concepts in this space is the idea of, is it transformative? Meaning, you have the technology of a book, right? The book has written language in it. Now, if you make an iPad that basically has a book in it, you have transferred the function into a new medium, but it's not a transformation. It's not transformative. You haven't transformed this process of reading into something that technology might be able to deliver. You've basically, you've recreated a book.
You've been able, you can read, you still can't write.
Yeah, yes, totally. So this guy, David Thornburg, was there when the first PC happened, and he sat there and he thought, holy shit, what is the actual transformative experience that technology could enable? Because the personal computer came from this concept that was floating around all these acid heads in Southern California, including this one very famous one, Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs credits LSD with the invention of the iPhone, with many of his technological insights, that the things that he learned under his LSD inspired altered states of consciousness organized his thinking in such a way that allowed the technological creation of the iPhone. Without LSD, it wouldn't have happened. These are his words, like roughly. Guy's dead, so it's easy to quote him, especially in loose forms, right? But anyway, that was something he was saying. He was saying that, yes. And so the concept was this: they were looking for, and I'm going to butcher this, they were looking for efficiency in nature. How do you spend a small amount of energy and get a major amount of energy back? Like, what is the most efficient thing? And they found this thing called the condor. The condor, turns out that it's just this bird of prey, and it's essentially at the top of its apex of its energy system. So it expends very little energy, and it's the most efficient one. Then they did this, and that beat humans, that beat all kinds of stuff. Then they factored in a human and a bicycle. Human plus bicycle kicks condor's ass. Like with a bicycle, you can fucking get some shit done with very little energy input. And that's the wheel, that's the transfer of, that's energy transference and gears. Yeah. There's a lot going on there. Okay. So the personal computer was going to be the bicycle for the mind. You're basically a mind, but if you had a personal computer, you could then strap the mind to it, and the mind would like use that thing to go take off like some kind of super fucking spaceship, interdimensional, craft, like explore the universe from the inside out. That was what they were seeing. Like, and that concept gets echoed by all these people in that time and space that were that's what they were trying to do. So this thing, the mother of all demos, baby. That's the vision, baby.
Yeah.
They had it set up where they had a screen, and they had invented the graphical user interface. They had invented the mouse. They had invented the keyboard. They had invented a printer. This came from PAC, or the Bell Laboratories. But in any event, they had all these pieces, and the last generation of computers were enormous. They were literally things that took up whole buildings or whole floors of buildings. And that shit was high priest territory. That was like, you weren't allowed to touch those things. Those were multi-million-dollar things. So the concept was, if you can shrink it all down and change the interface, you can then bring more people into it, because only a certain amount of people are going to be able to learn the physics and the engineering necessary to physically flip all these switches to take a whole building. And by the way, it was buggy. These are physical connections that would go in a room.
They have to be maintained.
Yeah, and
literally.
these devices produce a lot of fucking heat, and
Yeah.
insects were attracted to the heat and the light, and they would fly in there, and those little electrical contacts would squish a bug, and then so a bug in a computer program was a physical bug in this
Yeah.
generation of computers.
Fuck.
You would literally go scrape bug off of electrical contacts before those electrical contacts were represented in silicon.
Right.
And now we represent them with little atomic switches that are 10 atoms across. And you can basically get the same thing as two electrical contacts touching out here in this world. You can get the same logic effect at the nearly atomic level.
Atomic level
10 atoms
on
wide.
these new chips.
Yeah, 10 nanometer die. Or I think that's how they nanometer. I don't know. It's like 10 atoms across.
Whatever unit they use.
Yeah. It's angstroms, dude. These
dumb
are
small.
yeah, these are dumb small. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why acid is the most efficient drug ever, because
Well, and
what? No, what? Like by dose is it like the strongest, most powerful drug there is?
a very tiny
No
amount has a
fucking
massive effect. Because
like
yeah,
massive. You're talking micrograms.
yeah,
Micrograms. You
Yeah.
know how much Dilaudid it takes to kill you?
right,
You like milligrams, all right?
right.
It's an incredibly like that's like exponentially more potent, like more mass, like
Yes.
more mass of chemical going into your body, more volume of mass going into your body than acid. So we're talking about efficiency.
Yes.
This is why acid is special. I don't know why other than that.
I think when Albert, it was either Albert
it's an
Hoff-
adventure.
yeah, it was either Albert Hoffman or it was Shulgin, who had this metaphor. I think it might have been Shulgin. He's the guy that wrote those books, PCal and TCal, phenylalanines I have known and loved, and I forget the name of the TCal one. I forget what the acronym is for that. But that guy was a chemist in the 70s and 60s who essentially synthesized novel compounds and then tried them out with a group of friends. They had a psychedelic book club where what they would do is get together and try Alex Shulgin's newest compound. And this is how he repopularized MDMA. So all the ecstasy, MDMA, all that, the popularization of that comes out of Shulgin's lab and his little group of his wife and their friends when they would test out these things as like human trials.
Yeah. Is this the same guy that who's the my complete brain fart.
Give me a hint.
Going.
Give me a hint. What is it?
It's he had like a TV show. He's a chemist. He did some stuff with Vice.
Hamilton Morris.
Hamilton Morris's
Yeah.
show. I think his like first or last the last episode of his first season is about acid. He does one about acid. Is that the same guy?
No. No. Super likely. He might have interviewed Alex Shulgin on there. Let's grab that episode and let's find out. But Shulgin, I'm so sorry. That was a total tangent. The reason I say it is because when he's describing what you're describing, which is the amount of impact you can get for this number of molecules, and he's a chemist who deals in these things specifically. He's like, I think it was him. He says, it's like an ant. It's like watching an ant disassemble the Empire State Building in an hour. It's like, it would be like that, like this tiny thing disassembling this enormous process, and it's doing it very efficiently and very well, but like actually gets the job done. It's like, right. But that's what you're saying. Okay, so here's where LSD actually touches into this one, is that this guy, David Thornburg, is there, and he's at the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab, SAIL. And SAIL is where a big part of the personal computer happened. And SAIL is in Palo Alto in California, and there's a whole bunch of interfaces of defense contractors spending on these big $1 million machines, and then letting these young people in who are playing around with cannabis, and they're playing around with LSD and other things. And they let them in there, and mushrooms, and then they are the ones who figured out how to take the building and put it into a box. And the reason and the way that they did it is that there was a legal LSD research lab next door, more or less, just down the street. And for
Mhm.
$500, you could have a professional trip setter prime you, which was they'd go like this. They go, okay, bring us your engineering problems, your computer science engineering problems. Why these systems don't work. Fill your brain with that shit. Come to us. We give you the LSD. We sit with you for 8 hours. You write down shit. It was those insights from that process that is how they were able to solve the technical challenges that result in the creation of the personal computer, a bicycle for the mind.
Bicycle for the mind.
Totally. And this mofo, and in a time when everybody is thinking about all of the commercial applications and everything it can possibly do, this guy's sitting here and he goes, dude, what could you do with kids' brains? Like, what could you
Yeah.
how does that bicycle for the mind thing actually work itself out? And so he got deep into let me navigation. This holodeck idea is sort of a synthesis of it. But that's what's his name? Oh, he's a famous guy. He was
Chamberlain.
Will Chamber.
I
It's
don't
great.
know idea. That was just what came
This
to my
guy,
head.
this guy is all tatted up and runs
Will.
these amazing board games in his basement in LA. But he's a kid.
Oh,
But this is that holodeck with Riker on here, and his whole concept looked a lot like this other group. And here I have to switch the situation. This is a scene from Star Trek. We're just gonna play it, and we're gonna go like this and like this and like that, and
What is the formula for the volume of a sphere?
4/3 pi times the radius cubed.
Exchange
1.26. Any limbs.
of an additional scalar distance. What is the square?
turn it up a little bit.
396,324. What is the
1548.
dimensionality?
Dimensionality equals the
What are the
logarithm
two
of
key
n divided by
features
non-excludability and
of a
non-rival.
sphere?
4/3 pi times
When is
the
an
radius
action
when
set
it
to-
is morally praiseworthy but not morally obligatory.
okay. So
Wow.
all right. So did that come through okay? Did you kind of see some of the
Yeah, I did. Yep.
that is a representation of what he was talking about. He was talking about this concept that you could have a completely authentic, like in an integrated learning environment, and it would be completely custom tailor made for your view of life, like your consciousness, more or less.
Mm.
And so that was the thing. Wrap this personal computer around you like an exoskeleton, and then use those superpowers, its ability to immerse you in a subject as a way of going much further and learning and going much further out. But this all requires a shit ton of structure. It doesn't happen like on its own. It doesn't happen by magic. So he was also, this is like an open-ended kind of learning tool that could literally become anything that you needed it to become. This is a picture that he shows all the time from the 1300s, I believe, and it's a classroom where they're depicting an early classroom and like what the classroom structure where you have to sit in rows and listen to the smart guy or gal
Right.
talk or whatever. So you got this guy up here and he's talking, but you got these people back here and they're chatting. This one's writing something. This
Right.
one's daydreaming. They've got one
Yeah.
student who's essentially paying attention. This one's over here sleeping.
Yeah.
It's like he's
like
made
the
what,
earliest form of a classroom not working.
the earliest form of a classroom not working was
Like, from the beginning,
co-commitment with the
they even
classroom.
made art about
There.
it not working.
1,000%. You're nailing it. You're nailing it. It's so like it's so predictable how it
Yeah.
goes down. So-
Fragments.
So this guy, when Apple gets formed, because Steve Wozniak takes these insights from this great demo, and he actually does the hardware level building necessary to create the Apple, and then which attracts Steve Jobs' attention, and then he creates the Apple II, which is the first one that they could potentially sell, and this creates all the wealth that is Apple. It's this Apple thing. They had other systems that didn't take off and didn't catch on, but for a period of time there. But the original Apple computer was the one that did, or the two rather,
Yeah.
the 2E. And so John D. Couch, this guy is a part of this whole scene within the Apple, and he takes this on. He is the president, the vice president of education, like back in when these things are being invented in the late 70s. And Apple puts like all this money into education. Like they are committed to this bicycle for the mind metaphor.
Right.
And the reason why they make some of their choices about it working and not being less failure prone than the PCs were, which were a spinoff of that. The reason they do that is because they did have some of these these higher values. Like they were thinking about how it would work in an educational sense. And they were like, it's gotta, and they gave away a lot of PCs to schools. My first experience on an Apple was through that program. There was 3 of them in my local school when I was like 10 years old. And it was,
Nice.
yeah, actually, I wasn't 10, I was like 7 or 6, but yeah. Anyway, these concepts are also John, in this book, Rewiring Education, he talks a lot about how Thornburg inspires the shit out of him, and how Thornburg really had his finger on this pulse right at the beginning. And he thoroughly homage to this guy. So he talks about these archetypes of learning environment: cave, solo, research oriented; watering hole, social but unstructured, just like everybody needs water, so it's like going to be this playful more environment; and then campfire, focused, in a trance, one person speaking at a time, you take turns speaking. And he lays this all out in this book and in other things. He's down in Brazil with his wife, and they've started a crazy ass school down there that uses tons of projectors in their classrooms, and they basically try to build those Vulcan learning pods. They're trying to make that happen.
Dude,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
visit.
I know. Well, and they're beautiful people, so they publish all their stuff openly, and you can go to their website and get their papers, and they talk about their ideas quite openly. They're not trying to hide it.
That's cool.
That spirit of open collaboration was necessary to shrink the computer down. It would not have happened without a lot of
Right.
people figuring out those problems together.
Right. So
So-
now we're gonna try and do the same with
We're gonna-
education.
Exactly. And so this is
On
all
this
based on these
beacon.
models. This is a synthesis. This whole thing is a synthesis
gun.
I went through for a number of years that kind of brought this whole thing focused. So, okay, we've got the coordinate system, right? X and Y. Like you can sort of move on one and move on the other. And if you move, you move on the X, you can move out here, you can move on the Y. It's a way of taking a one-dimensional line and creating a two-dimensional space, because you start with a point, right? And when the point moves, it makes a line. And you add 2 lines here, and now you can basically start tracking in 2 dimensions, an X and a Y
Right.
coordinate, right?
Right.
So in our system here, we're trying to
patterns.
the principles behind this thing, because it doesn't matter
Yes.
if you don't have projectors and you're Motimbe and you live in a dirt village in Africa, you can do this with your friends in your dirt village.
Lines in the dirt.
We got your back, Motimbe. We got your back.
Yeah. You need something to be able to illustrate, create visualizations for yourself. That's it. We're there.
We're there. We take the situation and then we put the elements around it. So we take Earth, which is roughly the cave from Thornburg's model. We take water, which is the watering hole. We take fire, which is the campfire, and then air, which John D. Couch kind of talks about in his bringing in that 4th element into this kind of thing. And then the special conversation we're having is about the electricity that animates it all, because this is the piece that lightning in the bottle. How do you actually get that lightning in the bottle? Where does it come from?
Yep.
What is its principle? And how do you channel it into these other environments so that education actually becomes playful and interesting and has good fruit and isn't just expensive and sitting in your row for a while.
And hard to get. Just
And
over
hard to
there,
get.
You have to try and get it.
Exactly. So we can
Force
kind of
yourself to go get it.
So we simplify it. We simplify this stuff. He also talks about taking this into higher dimensions through taking the 1D the 0 point, the no dimensions to 1 dimension line, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. He's like you can take it into 3 and you can take it into 4 dimensions where these things are actually related to each other. So while we break it down to a very simple coordinate system like this, you get interplays between these things. You can mix these elements. They don't have to be pure experiences. Yeah. And then you start
crossing over between 2 of them. That's a coordinate system.
Yeah.
So it turns into like wherever you are in between those 2 that you're interacting with these
Totally.
geometries probably.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do those visualizations look like? Because this is a beautiful visualization.
Yeah.
To be able to visualize what we're doing to ourselves.
These Well,
I
dude,
want to
okay.
see data visualization. The field of data visualization
Yeah.
just needs to grow and grow so much more. I follow data visualization Twitter.
Yeah.
It's small.
Small.
It's too small.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I might be
too
having
small.
we're gonna need a Scooby-Doo moment. I might be having a technical problem here with my setup that I have to
Okay.
validate.
Good evening. Welcome in the morning.
Welcome in the morning, in the morning. There's
Mm,
lots of things happening in the morning.
yes.
Dude,
Platonic solids.
when I was studying a lot of
Yes.
geometry in my 20s, there was a this concept where in the Middle Ages and before the Middle Ages, there were people thinking about shape. They were thinking about shape and structure.
Mhm.
And just to hold the shape in one's imagination was to improve the imagination. So when you are imaginal space, you imagine some, these are just the simple Platonic solids. You can imagine these things like spinning or moving slow or fast inside kind of your inner space. And
Yeah.
the the like but you can imagine that every shape that's out there that we represent in 2 dimensions is actually a 3-dimensional shape.
Yeah.
And 3-dimensional shapes exist in time, and they also exist on a lot of other like higher levels. So
Right.
like,
And all the math,
yeah,
all that mass spinning has energy that it's throwing out into the environment around it
totally,
that
totally.
and impacting in these other dimensions. So we're when you see something on a piece of paper, how many abstractions is that from what you're actually seeing?
Yeah.
Like there's so many extrapolations down through all that stuff.
By the way, you only made a circle, an abstract circle. If you actually get down to the atomic level or whatever, it's a mountain of graphite that you make that you're calling
Right.
flat.
Yeah.
You know, it's
A
like,
mountain.
yeah, it's a,
Yeah.
if you're talking about this level, we are at the top of a huge set of processes that go down to like it's anyway, shape.
A mountain of graphite.
Totally.
Look at this landscape I just created, bro. It's
Oh yeah,
even like look at the shadow landscape in the middle of the sun.
totally. Dude, when we were talking earlier, you were talking earlier about VR, and I put you on hold, I put you on unpause on that one. So what's so amazing is that you ever seen motion capture like an Avatar, right? You ever seen
Okay.
those documentaries where the people wear those head rigs and it records their facial movements? They have those little dots on
Yeah.
them and stuff like that.
Right.
And those actors in The Abyss were also in this thing they called the volume. And it was this warehouse that had this tech that would essentially locate the position of all these special sensors. And
Right.
so when you move around like this in the real world, those relationships between those points in time and space are recorded in the computer as movement.
Right.
And then that movement is translated to the avatar body, or it could be a pear or an apple or whatever. You can basically become whatever you want because
Yeah.
you recorded the motion of a human and then you translated that in there.
Right. That's how they do a lot of animations.
That's how they do a lot of animations. Totally.
Yep. Good
So
animations nowadays.
what you can do with that same information. So like, let's say we record my hand going like this. Well, you can then tell a program, you could say, okay, when it's like this, the mountain is one size. But when you go like this, it's this size. And when you go like this, it's this size. So literally you have like a mountain DJ thing. So now imagine
Yeah.
you've got light and mountains and you're like, wow, wow, wow. You can actually make that information happen in a world, and other people go into VR, and in their world, the mountains are getting bigger to the music and the sun's getting brighter. But what it's really is it's your hand movements, right?
Yeah.
So like literally when you're talking about that, it's just the limits of your imagination in terms of what that maps to, and like what
Dude,
that
what if
represents.
different people have different roles in like what
It's like a
elements they can
band.
conduct
Yeah.
in
This
like
guy likes fire. We're bringing in this fire guy.
Yeah.
He's moving and the fire flames are
Yeah.
like doing something crazy.
Dude,
Right.
hell yeah. I have
Storytelling.
my imagination is going off now.
Okay, so that original translation that they were making with all those levels, right? That was they were abstracting. They were creating a platform for the rest of us. If everybody had to program at the atomic level, it wouldn't work, but we don't have to because life builds us up. We basically take the reins of the wheels at a certain age or whatever.
Right.
And so I think it's the same thing for this whole educational conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
what are the basic sort of levers that you can get a hold of to make it work? So here is that 5 model: earth, air, fire, water plus electricity. We'll call it Tokorio here in the middle. Tokorio, create the art of the heart. Techne,
Art of
Greek.
the heart.
Yeah, techne is Greek for art, for craft or art. Think basket weaving and practical technical skills. Creo, which is to create, and then core, which is a word for the heart. Core, create the art of the heart. That's the word for the intrinsic flow of electricity from the inside out. It's also the
Right.
turning of this basket that we all are, right? Okay,
Right.
so you take this,
And then an exclamation point because
It's
that's the
energy.
type of energy we have
Yeah,
about this.
you should
That's our.
it's a shouted
that's-
verb
Yup,
is what it is. It's like,
there
it's
you go.
Koryo. It's like, that's the actual, when you can't control it coming out, you've Tokorio'd. Like, it's,
Yeah.
I gotta go make this thing. Like,
Yep. When you're bottling it up and trying to put it so you don't forget it because you're that excited about it. That's
Yeah.
what we're going for.
can you imagine life that you sort of jump out of bed in the morning and you're just like sprinting to your first activity
Yeah,
because
so
it's so
excited.
much fun? Totally, right?
Hell yeah.
Hey, why don't we, I just want to pause here for a second. And we were talking earlier about churches as structures, and like, dude, that immortality code, that guy that I think I put the link in there to the Rogan episode where he talks about Eleusis and the Elysian mysteries,
Okay.
where they have the ergot, like the Rye ergot derivative. They're essentially taking
Uh-huh.
acid in caves in Greece thousands of years ago, and they create democracy and the Platonic solids, and all this stuff comes out of this plus a lot of Egyptian mystery school stuff. Like the Egyptians would train people from other lands, and a lot of those Greeks got trained in these Egyptian schools. But oh shit, that's too many threads. Where am I going with that?
Oh yeah, that painted a good picture in my head though. Thank
Do
you.
you remember the original thread?
No one else was blessed. I was.
That's freaking. That's
Um,
lovely. That's totally lovely. Okay. Oh. Ergot,
Ergot,
immortality
Joe Rogan,
code. Yeah.
um,
Shit. I'm gonna find it. I'm
dude.
gonna find it.
yeah,
Okay.
back from.
Okay. Well, so maintainers of a space, right? Maintainers of a space. Like you have a fire person who knows fire real well and maintains like a fire kind of space, right?
Yeah.
And so the facilitator of these spaces is kind of like the shaman, like practitioner, the person who's
Right.
practicing these crafts. Anyone
Right.
could do it because these are just open ideas, and there's a lot of
Right.
creativity that you could like
This is
bring to it.
Back to the VR idea.
Well, and just
Like,
creating
what-
classrooms.
Yeah, and classroom. Okay.
Yeah. Dude, we've got some hyperloops. Oh, churches. Oh God.
Hyperloops.
So they talk in there.
Yes.
They talk in there.
I was like, oh, this was just
I got it.
back to another part of our conversation. I was like, let's get all right, we'll go here.
This is why we need to take a month and do
Yeah.
errata. This is why we need to take a month to do errata, because you could come back with so many cool sub stories. You should create like,
right.
this is a Curiosity Engine 7.0, but then we make a 0.1, which is like a bunch of errata fixes, and then 0.2,
Yeah.
which is more errata fixes.
Yeah.
And then it has subunits in a giant map, right?
Exactly.
Follow up.
That's exactly like you like give each one an IP address.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you make sure that you explore the full network that it's connected
Yeah.
to, so that it's
Yep.
it's good.
Good.
Okay, so that guy, that young guy there who did all that Greek and Sanskrit scholar, he was doing all that research. What was so cool about was saying is they found cannabis residue on the things that they would swing in the churches. So they're hotboxing. They're hotboxing. They're hotboxing those places a little bit. There's a little bit of cannabis in the air. Everyone gets a little more focused on their meditation, a little more focused on what they're about to do inside this church. So I thought that was interesting.
Didn't some boys in the Bible get in trouble for taking those those prayer swingy
Oh, and like
things?
huffing them.
Yeah, or not, or like they took them out of the church and were using them or for something else. This is in the Old Testament.
Wow, that's an interesting
Yeah.
reference. I'm not familiar with that one. I know in the Old Testament they talk about, or I forget where
It
it
was
is in
like
there.
the sons of.
Yeah.
Bruno, do you know what I'm talking about?
It's the
No.
Cynthians,
He says the Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy,
Shut the fuck up.
Cynthians.
The Scythians.
The
No, it was
Cynthians, they
there
hotboxed,
were
they,
two boys. It was like time of Moses, like pretty sure.
oh,
Right around in there.
they're huffing
Yep.
DMT out of some like Jewish altar thing or something.
No, not humping DMT. It was like
A little
the
acacia bush
incense,
burning in there.
like there was ritual in how the priest took care of the tabernacle.
Yes,
And these were used in those rituals, and they got used for personal reasons outside of the church grounds.
Yeah.
And then they
which
got in
means they
trouble
had,
for-
which means they had power, which means they had some kind of psychological,
yeah,
psychic
they were
impact.
priests in training, or so
Wow.
they were sons of priests.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's cool.
And they took the things out and were and ended up getting
They're
in
go-
trouble for
They're
it.
gonna get busted for it, but
Yeah,
it
by
also,
God. I think they got busted by God somehow. I don't
well,
remember.
God would know. God would know.
Mhm.
But
But
know-
being that weed, so they found residue on these things, who knows?
hotbox in churches is what I'm saying.
Hotboxing churches is what we were talking about.
That
We're getting
that's
back
real.
to that.
It's
Yeah.
real.
Hotboxing churches.
Okay, so along the hotbox in
Oh,
churches,
the blasphemy!
dude, that was what was so wild about going to the International Church of Cannabis in Denver, which
Uh-huh.
is a place where you can legally smoke, not the public. You can't just walk in off the street and spark up, but if you wait for the service that happens at a certain time each week and you're invited, then which is easy to get invited, you then can go and you can get high with like 45, 50 other, 60 other people at once. And that group like elevation was such a when people discover what's really there, when people let each other get high together socially, there's going to be a whole thing that comes out of that, because it is can be a very positive, creative, healing environment. Lots of I just think a lot of very positive, human leaning impulses come out in that state. And
Yeah.
it was a very, I've been a priest in many churches, and I showed up there as Rev Paul, and they were like, "Oh, you're like a real priest?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally. I like do this kind of stuff." And they were like, "Well, you're gonna love this." And I was like, "That's great." And so I got to see it through a couple of different lenses, and
Right.
it's beautiful. It's easy, it's beautiful, and it's quite compatible with most Christianity, I would imagine. So
Yeah.
it'll be cool when it actually catches on somewhere.
Yep. Somewhere. Somehow.
Somewhere over the
Or
rainbow.
everyone just
where
fucking gave their
dreams-
kids away to us.
That sounds
by
spooky and
putting them
dangerous.
on the internet.
Dude. We don't
where
need to
they can
steal kids.
find
We
it
don't need to steal
themselves.
kids.
No, but no, kids have to find their own way. So
Oh, yeah,
hopefully
and
you
they
find
do.
it in the right spaces.
Find it inside.
You
The,
have to find it inside.
Okay, so this structure that we're talking about here, you can start adding dimensions to it. So you take that 5-element structure, and then you think about it as structured and unstructured, and then to kind of take that down. So it's a 3-dimensional form. Take it down to the 2nd dimension. You have unstructured solo, earth, air axis,
Mhm.
and then structured and unstructured social with
Mhm.
fire and water. Wow, that took a
Mhm.
lot of energy to describe that.
Yeah, you got it out, dude.
Woo! Here's
Nice.
an example. Here's an example in terms of dance. Okay, so if you think about this as dance, this is 4 different ways of dancing and 4 different reasons for dancing and structures for dancing. You can have the solo earth dance where you're alone, no one's watching, it's just you and the sunset and God and everything, and it means something in there, right? And there's
Mhm.
something about that solo depth that inspires you to want to bring that, maybe it inspires you to want to bring it to other people. But so you can
Mhm.
think about that, the process of taking that solo experience of that beauty and
Right,
refining it to the point where you could perform it like on a stage with
Right.
other people. It's
right.
like there's a whole thing there. You think
Mhm.
about, okay, so that's the solo, that's one person dancing. Now you think of social, just multiple people. You have this structure, the unstructured form of social dancing over here is just everyone's hanging out, like it's chatting, people can kind of like do sometimes you get into the music and sometimes you're talking
Right.
to people or whatever.
Yep.
Mixing.
Mixing.
Yeah, that's a
mixer.
very water event. There's something
Mhm.
everyone's doing, dancing, but there's also other casual social interaction that's happening. Now
Right.
think about the fire version of that. Would be like the old timey way where there's like a very set protocol for this
Yeah.
thing at this time, and there it is. And these are all different ways of dancing. And so these are what it really turns into is it's different ways of thinking about the social process of learning. Or
Yeah.
is this a task that,
Different ways of coordinating.
and also when you're
With
in that earth element and you're deep in there, you are going to find stuff that you will be sharing in these other dimensions. And so
Mhm.
it's a way of kind of focusing each one and the value in each one.
Mm. Mm.
You were saying something else a second ago?
Just was it's like this is the coordination of any anything decentralized.
Could, yeah, exactly. It's archetype, right? And we're
Yeah.
talking about it in terms of archetypical shape and such like this. Oh, we got to take a detour. Rupert Sheldrake and his theory of morphic resonance turns 40 years old this year. And so he made that video for the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is the thing that Edgar Mitchell founded when he was flying back from the moon and saw his dead father in the capsule and talked to him for half an hour, right? Or saw him inside. So in any event, this is the shape thing. Rupert Sheldrake has posited from first principles this idea that shape is memory, that life is essentially what a human is it's a memory of shape, that humans take the form they take and have the biological definition that we have because the other humans have had that as a pattern. And that he calls this morphic resonance, and he describes it in several different forms. Gonna take a pause.
La 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 la.
We got Peter back from the abyss.
Yeah.
He was lost in the
I
internet's drainage hole.
dropped off, lost my connection here
Nexiums.
on this Tennessee fiber.
It's so powerful. It's like lightning. It
So
just
powerful.
it has to
Just
jump around. It has to jump
yeah.
around, jump around.
It lost me for a second.
Okay. Morphic resonance. So there's this theory that Rupert Sheldrake has, and he discovered it when he was traveling in India. He was traveling in India as a young person, and this person who ran a Christian monastery found him and said, "Hey man, why don't you hang out with me and just like in this monastery, and you can just like do your shit here." And so he did, and he wrote this paper. This theory turns 40 years old this year. And so
Oh.
it predicts all these different things, which they've proven, these very interesting studies. So they have this one study that has to do with a picture. So you show people this abstract image, and there is a picture that is revealed inside the image. Once you know the answer, you can't unsee it. Every time someone shows it to you, you only see that image. It's
Mhm.
like a one-way gate in the brain, right?
Okay.
So you're kind of
One of those dressed like the purple or green dress. Like you remember that thing that went on
Rorschach tests. Yes.
the Rorschach.
Associative tests. What does this abstract image make you think of? There's this abstract image, and you look at it and you stare at it and you stare at it and you stare at it. It's not a fucking image. And then they show you what it is, and then it's like, oh, and it's right there. It was there from the start. It's so clear. You're looking at it,
Mhm.
and then you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they show this to people, and they get a percentage for how many people can see it.
Mhm.
Then they isolate. So then they isolate people. So they take a second. I'm going to make up numbers. I'm making this up. It's
Right. Yep.
principle. It's like you have
Stats.
stats. You have like 100 people, and you show them to them, and like 4 of them can figure it out or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, and then what you do is you take another 100 people and you isolate them, and then you go on TV, national public radio for public broadcasting, and you're like, hey, and there's 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people watching. You go, hey everybody, what's this a picture of? And everyone at home goes, oh, and the same percentage, 4%, they can't see it. And then they show them the answer. And when they show them the answer, those 1,000 minds see it. The 100 people in isolation that didn't see this broadcast, their percentage goes from 4 up to like 40 or something. It's like there's maybe it's even higher. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's like there's a tipping point where if you show it to enough people and the people learn it, the knowledge is transferred without any direct connection. And it's because we're all human shaped. And because we're human shaped, we're resonating human. And if a human resonating over there is doing something, it's affecting my human resonation. And that was one of the experiments that they did in this video I'll
Dude.
share. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Shape
We need to
memory.
figure out where that, you remember that dress, like where they were like,
Yeah.
what the
Black and
color of the
gold. Yeah.
dress?
Yeah.
I bet someone was fucking testing us
Well,
somehow.
it's one of those cognitive edges
Yeah.
to the brain where
Yeah.
once you cross it, and anyway, it's a way to test this concept. They do it with crosswords too. They take a crossword and on day one, it's this hard. But then some people solve it and on day two, it's this hard. And if there's a crossword on day 5 or 6 that tens of thousands of people have solved, it's very easy to solve it at the end.
Mm,
Even if it's and that's a they've just
yeah.
they can measure this effect. And what it has to do with is shape. So shape meaning if there's more of something, there's more resonating with that shape, meaning that whatever that shape is stays. So this is kind of the first mover advantage when we're talking about like fourth generation warfare and you're talking about narrative control. Like if you
Mhm.
control a
Yeah.
narrative first, there's this huge advantage to setting the shape first because then the other people have to work against that shape. And by doing so, they strengthen that shape. So by hitting the conversation first or painting your opponent in a certain way first, it's like a information psychological warfare kind of tactic. You want to be, you don't want to be on the receiving end of it. You want to always be poking
Right.
your opponent. Yeah. And we the American people turn out to be the opponent of the deep state, etc., through the apparatus
Yeah.
of the media, and they're like they're just like they're getting deep in those brain stems,
Dude.
baby.
Yeah.
So okay, so this
More
principle,
pokes. Why do
yeah,
you think Facebook's thing was a poke?
it was a poke. You're you're
It's a
you're
poke.
you're stimulating a human shape at a distance.
Right.
And when we're in resonance with a lot of other humans, it feels good. It feels like we're in community, right? It's like a
Right.
it's like a synchronization of our inner process with our outer experience, and that feels good. It makes people feel safe. They're you ever hear about the Quakers? They would split their men and their women into two sides in their congregation, and they would sit there and they would shake and they would move like with the spirit, like men and women separated in all things, but they would get together and this electricity between them would like sort of form a third person in the room, the Holy Spirit.
Mm,
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit.
Okay. So Rupert Sheldrake, this,
Fascinating, huh?
yeah. Okay.
Never thought of it with that lens.
Yeah. You're also setting by filling anything with energy, you're setting a greater resonance to it. So
Right.
it's almost like consciousness can control how much resonance it adds to these kinds of things. And that's how we can shape the affairs of stuff. Okay, so that's learning with the picture and the transmission of learning and with the crossword. Those are cognitive things. But it happens with physical solids too. So there have been several compounds that were invented. And when they were invented, they had a boiling point or a melting point like here. And then
Mhm.
and then after you made more of aspirin or whatever, it moves to here and then it moves to here. And when they test the melting point of like gold or whatever, it's very constant because there's so much of it out there in the universe. But when they make up something that's entirely new, they've never done it before. At the
Uh,
beginning, it melts easy, but then there's more of it, and so it likes to stay at that state. So you can literally tell how much of a substance is on the Earth by what the melting point of it is. You can flip the equation and go the other way
fuck.
by that change in that shit. Ultimately, if this principle is real, so that's a
Yeah.
shape principle affecting the atomic level. Now think about
Mhm.
what we are. We are the atomic level, organized into the molecular level, organized into the chemical level, organized into the system level, organized into the social level. It's like we're
Right.
this thing in between all these different things. And the material that we are a part of has this memory effect. So doesn't it make sense that patterns of human expression would have stickiness based on how many people were doing it, and that would this is a
Yeah.
mechanism for advertising. Show enough people the same association and you're sort of teaching them the crossword puzzle so
Yeah.
that the next person that sees it just intuits, oh, this is about value and goodness when I see the big
Right.
mountain and the columns in this logo
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. We could
Stability and
really
strength.
effectuate that, propagate it. Why do you think these industries that do that make so much money?
Because it
Fucking
works.
works.
Yeah. So this could be
Fucking works.
a mechanism. This could be a mechanism for how memes propagate, for how ideas change minds, and just
Mhm.
that the meme, that idea of there is the anyway, there's a genetic level to it, but the meme is like the informational kind of level to it. But check this shit out. We
Right.
were talking earlier about atoms and how the electron organizes in shape. What if it's down to that level? What if there was at one point no electron, no proton or whatever, or there was a state like that where all these things were perfectly balanced? And when people say, and God was there at the beginning and God gave the word and then everything happened from there, right? Like Yogananda's like it's Om, like Om becomes Amen through the Egyptians and Amen and but it's Om. So what if it's all just still and God's like Om, and literally from there you get your first protons and then you get your first electrons and then that's hydrogen and then you get two electrons and that's in a shape and that's helium, and it's all built up from that level. Just this was the pattern that started it, and then this is the next stage of the pattern and the next stage of the pattern, and that's really that's the theory of how it all got made anyway. There was a time
Right.
when there was no iron in the universe, and you had to have stars explode and pattern these higher levels of atomic structure in order to get those in out there. So anyway, if you
Right.
made up a new one, it might just go away immediately. But if you made it somehow, you're able to hold it there, you might be able to solidify an element out of the atomic, the shape of the electrons and the protons and how they mix together or something like that,
Yep.
So
I see what
shape,
you're putting down. Shape,
nice.
space,
Space, shape.
designation of energy through space.
So ritual, when we're talking about churches or spaces that are holy, you're talking about pattern through time. And the more you maintain the pattern, the stronger the resonance gets. This is what the Jews said. They were like, this is the exact shape of the Temple of David. This is what the Hindus say. This is the exact shape of the altar, the exact shape of the building, the exact dimensions of it. This is, if you go to Bali, the Balinese, they base their homes off of a proportion for the person that's going to live there. So they measure your golden ratio of your body, and then they build your house based on that. It's your house is like in resonance with you, which is like an amplifier for your life force energy and your intention, like steering
Sounds
the ship of
amazing.
consciousness.
I need to hire one of those people as a consultant when I design my house,
Nice. Or just go live in Bali.
or just do that.
It's cheap.
Definitely. Fuck, you're so right.
Because
We're
Bali,
gonna have Elon Musk is gonna give me great internet in like 5 years. I'm just
Totally.
gonna go over there.
1000%. And Bali takes this to an extreme. They have a temple system where they have the mother temple, and then
I've
all
already
the.
been to Bali.
I've never been
my
there,
life. Yeah,
dude.
I've been
Did you go to
there.
any? Did you go to any temples or any
I
religious
visited
spiritual?
and walked by a lot of them. Yeah.
If you look at a map of the island, it all is a radiant mandala they time their temple rituals to be in synchronicity so that there is a natural synchronistic organic energy on the island where everybody does the same thing at the same time. So it sets the clock each time of the day they do it. And that clock is how commerce happens. It's how creativity happens. It's how life happens. It's how mating and finding, spouses and events and all this, it all is in this. They keep that rhythm going. So it's like a living, pulsing matrix of story.
Well, and that was another thing you feel and see like to depth in like I've been to Ethiopia too, in Ethiopian culture, and I've visited like the churches that are just hand cut out of mountains.
Yeah.
Just
old.
And then how the people around think about that, and then how they communicate, like in how they group communicate, like, and the rituals around that and the coffee and the stuff like that.
Yeah.
But even like the subtext to their communication, like they, like when you're talking to someone and I don't know how Americans do it necessarily, but like you're giving like lead to the other person that you're like picking up what they're putting down and whatnot. And they, in Ethiopia, they do this thing where they like this sharp inhale, like the
Yep.
people are always reinforcing like with the beat of conversation to whoever's talking, just like the emphasis.
Fall into this rhythm. Fall into this rhythm.
Yeah.
This is how we're doing it.
And it's literally done through they do it with their breath.
Yeah.
The undertone it with their breath. And then you're talking about these resonance through patterns and this deep tradition in Ethiopia. They like literally think the Ark of the Covenant is out there, is in Ethiopia, and all of like Christianity was birthed there, and like everyone there, like the people that walk around, they own that. Now obviously there's that's their own, that's the more religious side of the people in that culture.
Yeah.
But like that definitely would permeate if we're talking about these rhythms of
Yes.
society
Yes.
through the land and the patterns of
You,
life in
you
that
are gonna love
ground.
life in that ground, that spirit in the ground, everything filled
Yeah.
with everything filled with electricity from the
Uh-huh.
atomic level out. It's just all resonant electricity. The most of what's happening in our space is these big E fields, these electron fields bonding and being in perfect shape resonance with each other. That's how molecules get made. Is like the atomic resonances of these orbital click. They're like Lego blocks at the atomic level.
Right.
They stick together based on shape, like Legos do. You know,
Yeah.
and we're all dude, which means that like all life goes back to the same basic pattern. If you just allow for this building of momentum through time, like that Lex Friedman, that's what that Sarah lady was saying. She was saying that life is literally, the complexity of her at one point in that conversation, she says, I'm the result of 4 billion years of pattern. You don't get to the point where I'm having this conversation with you without this 4 billion years of essentially pattern built up behind this thing. And every piece of the pattern is building and contributing to the next, which is very much like our air element. When we get to this thing, air is where it's like given away. Perhaps air is where shape is dominant. It's like the broadcast of shape is like the resonance that an antenna uses. It's using atomic shape with electrical
Yeah.
pulses, but
Well, it's usually waved and
Yeah.
light sound wave. Whatever the fuck all that is. Just playing with the energy through the air.
yes,
That's what they're doing.
yeah. Shape and time. It's shape and time is a
shape
signal,
and
electrical
time,
signal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also there's, it's so beautiful though. I mean, that's really what a radio frequency or a spectrum broadcast is. You say this spectrum is the upper and lower limits of the universe. This kind of a modulation means this kind of a modulation means that. And so you encoded sound like a human voice,
Yeah.
which doesn't go into that spectrum.
But, like,
You encoded it in that one because it
pulsing
goes farther.
across this spectrum
Yeah.
at different times.
Translations.
Yeah.
Translations and encoding it, and it decodes on the other side. Totally. I wonder, it's kind of like what this tells me on a
Sound
philosophical.
is so fucking interesting, dude.
It's 3-dimensional first off.
Yes,
We always
first
draw
off.
little 2D lines, but those are 3-dimensional exploding spheres of
More than
energy.
3-dimensional.
Way, right?
Way more.
Because a lot can ride. A
Yeah.
lot of spiritual stuff can ride on the voice, especially on the voice. Yeah. Consciousness itself can piggyback on the right frequencies of voice, and that is a good story. And it takes another person to another place that doesn't really exist, but is it real inside one person, and through story, it's real inside another person.
Mm.
We're magical story engines. Always like, okay, so what this tells me, this whole shape conversation, is every shape matters. Like the private thoughts you're having at home alone, where it's just you in charge of the temple of your consciousness and your light body, that is, whatever you do is going to go out in the resonance to everything. And it's going to, and also whatever else is done is going to come into your resonance. So it's like a very strong choice to always be like vigilant or clear, even in your most private moments, because what the science of shape tells us is that you're a part of it all through this shape resonance, and there are no quote private moments. Like what you're doing alone, completely alone, matters as much as sometimes the stuff you're doing totally when you're invisible in public,
Right. Well, there's even some principles around religious principles around that too.
Right. Talk about that.
That's why that idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Idle hands are the devil's workshop. Right.
Devil's in the details.
An unscripted environment, an environment where anything goes. Anything?
Anything? Controlled chaos. All right. They build structure. These tools, Ellen White or any recent religious prophet.
Yeah.
Didn't have the aperture that I do now. All right. So
the paintbrushes,
conversation change.
The materials to make a creation.
We got so many more dimensions to play in our minds now that just didn't exist they existed, but they were woo woo. We can now start nailing shit down in provable visual ways. Like,
1,000%, 1,000%. And, okay, so each one of these spaces in the model, the Tokorio 5 model theory here, each one of these spaces has an art to it, and you can make up your own thing. So let's go through each of the spaces elements. And the idea here is we're going to just get creative and brainstorm about how you might apply the principles of the archetype of that space, how it might work for you or how it might work around you. So the first one is, we'll start back here, continuity. So there's our dance, our social and our solo dynamics and such. Okay,
Yeah.
so Earth is all about going deep. Okay, it's like going into the cave. This metaphor of turning the light on. It's like the third eye being open in a certain way. It's like if you go looking for spiritual
the
truth,
headlight.
the headlight. You open up.
Yeah.
You open up the headlight.
That's why, like adventuring, like rock climbing or scuba diving, or people like to go caving, or even the craziest people scuba dive in caves.
Yeah, yeah.
The people who are most about, that's like, if you think about a dangerous thing to do, man. It's like, let me take
What are they doing?
everything.
That's the human desire to explore, the human desire to like go to the next frontier, to like do the next thing, right? To like get there.
Yes.
The
It's
one thing,
exhilarating.
if you look closely on this image, well, one of the things you do when you go into a cave like this is you leave a trail, like a breadcrumb trail.
Yeah,
Like,
literally, it'd be like a string.
that's right. And if you lose that string, you might just be dying
Fucked.
underground.
You will probably run out of air before you find it again.
Okay, so the important part there is continuous ascents and descents. So let's say you find a book or something you're going to use as a text, a book, a movie, or something. You make progressively deeper descents into it. So you don't go to the fucking bottom of the cave on day one, right? You go in a little bit and you get a lay of the land. It's like a general kind of overview, and then you go back up to your base camp. You take a beat and you go, okay, out of what I know, where is the gold? You're always looking for where's the mineral wealth of this situation, right? You're going deeper and you're looking for these indications that there's something in plain sight that looks normal, but really if you cleaned it off, it would be quite valuable. So this is a nearly clear gemstone in a piece of mineral, and this one is a thing called halolite, I think it's called, but it was discovered like a couple years ago in Michigan. Someone had a black light on the beach and they found this one kind of rock that glows under black light in daylight, but it was always there. It was always there. You just couldn't see it. And with the right radiation, the right broadcast of light into it, it reveals itself as this gem. Dude, this glowing gem on the beach.
Rocks.
I almost bought one at a gem store, but I'll get I will keep my eye open for them. There's a big gem show, the second largest in the country, in Denver, in September 16th, and it's during
September 16th.
Yeah, September 10th to 16th, and they have halolite there. I almost bought some the last time I was there. I should have grabbed some. But okay, so you set up this pattern in your descents where you take notes. Okay, I'm bearing the lead. Record. You need notes, you need a journal, you need some field notes. A lot of the early scientists, when they invented science, that they started with notebooks, just pictures of plants and animals and natural phenomena that they were noticing around them. It's the same kind of thing. It doesn't matter how you do it, it just matters that you do it. The process of making the recording and then regularly reviewing your recordings will show you the trail of value that you were pursuing as you got deeper into the subject. So every subject is vast. There's so much you can focus on, especially technical shit. There's all kinds of stuff you can focus on. So it's a matter of like selecting and selecting and selecting and selecting. And as you get, what you're doing is you're honing in on that gem inside of there. And the way that one of my favorite stories about how this all works, it was based on this guy. This is Carl Jung. This guy's Carl Jung.
Okay.
Carl Jung. Carl Jung came up with this. A lot of the framework, the story that we describe. So have you ever heard this concept, introvert, extrovert?
Yes,
That's his idea.
definitely.
You ever heard
Yeah.
of this concept?
The
Go ahead.
whole the 4-letter spectrum of
Oh yeah.
that scale.
Yeah. The ESTJ.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
INFP, ENTJ, whatever. I don't remember what it's called. It's an anagram.
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful system and it's got a lot of richness to it. And that was a mother-daughter team that created that system. And it's a pretty cool system. I've used it before. It's very valuable. It's a very useful skill it comes from that. So that's all that.
Yep.
You ever heard of this? You ever heard of this idea? The unconscious mind and the conscious mind?
I don't think I've heard of that, Paul.
It's funny, right?
Keep
It's
going.
hilarious.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because it's literally a part of the air we breathe now. It's
Yeah.
like, it's such a given. There was a
Yeah.
time when it was not a given.
Yeah,
There was
it's like, do you see people being drones or are they alive?
It might
Do
be
you
this.
see how you yourself wave in and out of having conscious mind and an unconscious mind through different mediums of the activities of your life, the time you spend on your phone.
Making new shapes is expensive. If there's a shape that's never been made before and you're the first one to make the new shape, it costs a lot, it's expensive, and there's no one there and you can tell, right?
Yeah.
But if it's got value and you keep repeating it, people will flock to it and start making the shape, and then it'll become common. That was Carl Jung with the conscious and the unconscious mind. He kept talking about the part of us that is shared and how there is at one point no different. If you go deep enough in the unconscious mind, we're all coming from the same place. And that's why we have collective activity and collective action. The mechanism of it might be this shape thing. It's easier to go into shape that's already been made, advertising, rather than to think clearly and to
definitely.
create originally in a new way as it's needed. So,
Right.
Every business that comes along wants you to do a new pattern with their service. This is how you solve this problem. But every business will be replaced by another one. Somebody else will come and figure out a better way to do it. That's almost fucking universal. So when that process is allowed to happen, there's this natural life and death cycle of all these instruments that carry these insights. I'm getting off topic here, but
Dude,
in any event, you've got your Carl Jung here. So this guy makes a big impact on a lot of people's brain skis, including ours, right?
brain skis, yes.
Exactly.
Laying it down.
This guy, Cal Newport, wrote this book, Deep Work. And this is an awesome work, The Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. This honestly could be a curiosity engine manual, because what he talks about is your ability to put yourself in a room and teach yourself a trade in like a day or two could literally be the difference between you being employable and not being employable because of the rate of technological change. And the more specific you can get into a technology and learn its inner workings and details, the more employable you will be. The more in demand your skill set will be. You'll be able to charge a higher rate for your skill set. You'll be able to make more calls about what gets happened. Go to the other end, sink into the shape sea, to the very bottom, to the oldest shapes that have ever existed, and you're moving extremely slow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have a lot of competition.
And you have a lot. It's almost like a function of matter competition, right?
Yeah.
It's like a background radiation.
Yeah.
He tells this story about this thing. It's called Bolingen Tower. Bolingen Tower was made, one of these towers, we'll call it this one because it's the impressive one. They'll say this was made by hand by Carl Jung. And here's how this goes. His teacher was Freud, and Sigmund Freud was an avid cocaine user, coming up with the psychotherapy theory of how everything works, right? And he saw so many people who were the victims of various forms of trauma and sexual abuse, essentially, in his part of the world, in Switzerland and stuff. There were all these young women who couldn't express themselves. They were mute and they couldn't talk. And when he got them uncorked through his technology, his talk technology, they would talk about terrible stuff that had happened to them sexually. That was like, or violently, and it was all bottled up trauma. So he was literally pulling the cork of trauma, which no one understood about humans, off of people, and out from it comes all this thing. And so he says, well, all life is about sex, because the issue turned out to be a ton about sex. Jung was his student and said,
because the weakest people get taken advantage of the most.
Whoa, that's a very dark but very true kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
If people understand that you're an easy mark, that's why you have to stand up for yourself. And even if it's a pointless battle, you gotta punch the bully right in the face.
Yeah.
Like every time, right?
Yeah, every
Yeah.
time.
You don't get, there's no
Gotta-
free, there's no freedom. There's no free shots here. You just
There's no
take the
free
crack.
shots anywhere.
That's how this
Nothing's
works.
free.
Nothing's free.
Nothing's really free.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing something.
Yeah.
It's from somewhere.
Here's
Anyway,
another angle on that sweet little cottage he made. So here's how this goes down. He is disagreeing with Sigmund Freud on many levels, but he's very in demand because this new psychoanalysis thing is big in Geneva, Switzerland. This is Vienna. It's like a big deal. They got a lot of clients. Kind of to put a bow on the Sigmund Freud thing. What Jung said was that the reason why Freud evaluated his theories thusly is because he was operating within a very specific population. And so what he was reporting on broadly was like the dynamics of what he was seeing, but he
that
was
population.
seeing it everywhere. And what Jung was doing is he was reading other cultures. He was sort of bringing in this worldview, and he's like, listen, this is an area we're talking about here at our time and place. But when you go broader and you go historically more diverse, there are these deeper patterns that happen. And he gave that the term archetype. There was another philosopher. I'm learning all this from listen to all this, Joseph Campbell. There was another German philosopher that called them elementary forms or elementary shapes, but it's the whole fucking morphic resonance thing again. It's like the elementary shapes in consciousness form these archetypes, and Jung called them archetypes, and he used all of this to create this model where we've got the outer world and the inner world, extrovert, introvert. You've got the self, the God self at the heart of everything, the center of the mandala, which he held back from calling God, but in his personal experience, all the people around him were like, that's what he was talking about. He was trying to find more sophisticated ways of expressing it. You've got the persona that has the ego, which is the mask we wear socially. All social interaction is lies on one level, but that's okay. They're like good lies because you're taking an infinite being, which is us, and you're saying just this at this time.
Right
And that's
now.
just, everybody's getting pissed about their masks. And it's like, dude, if you just go around ripping masks off everybody, and it's like, what's nice,
Disruptive.
it's a nice to have a culture that lets you choose what that's going to be, but it's also intrinsically driven. Anytime you get laws
You
involved, like,
constantly
can't
have
wear
to be
those masks
shedding masks, or you're
to grow.
Yep, to grow, or you're not growing. Yep.
Not growing. Okay, so you've got the shadow. The shadow was sort of everything that's still us that isn't expressed socially, and inside of that there is the anima and the animus. If you are expressing masculinity outside, you then have a strong feminine pole to that relationship, which is the anima, the inner feminine. And if you are expressing female in the world, you then have an inner man, the inner animus. And there's been a lot said about like imago therapy and a lot about attraction between people, that what we look for is aspects of the unexpressed version of this in the other person, regardless of your actual gender, or however you see that. But like if you've got an inner feminine principle that sort of needs some shoring up, and you see that outside you in a stronger form, at least for a moment, that connection, that can be at least part of that psychological growth that's available in the relationship, can be part of the spark that would fuel a healthy relationship, like a growth oriented relationship.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that kind of thing.
You know how to handle it.
If-
Harness that.
Exactly.
If you were down to ride that bull.
Okay, so so that whole theory about Jung's whole theory and all the impact that's made and all the good that's come out of that, here's how that was possible. At the height, he's got all this work, and at the height of his shit, he says, stop. He goes to this place where there's nothing, and he starts taking stones and starts arranging them. He goes out early in the morning, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and he stays till late at night. He builds this tower. He then continues the pattern, and he goes into the tower, and he sits there and he thinks deeply about all this stuff, and he then synthesizes his early theories about that we now know as Carl Jung's view of the world. And he
It's a space. Dude, that's so powerful. All right, keep going. Sorry.
No, we're nailing it. That's
We're
that's
nailing
it.
it.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You put boundaries on time and space in order to get an effect. And without those boundaries, we would not have. Jung would have just stayed in Geneva, done this, blah, 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 but he didn't. He took that time away to actually do it. So it's very valuable to have that deep work
and
time.
You can do that with your mind palace, or like
Yes,
you
totally.
can create a space for thought by,
Yes.
like, I've used these hiking trails that are really close to my house, and I was very regular about thinking and hanging out in these woods and learning this complex trail system
Yeah.
and hiking all over this this ridge essentially
Yeah.
here in Tennessee, and learning that ridge and how the ground works and the different, plants and shit that are around there, how far you can see in these different environments. You're
Yeah.
kind of learning all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a pathway for me to, so it got me started thinking about a lot of this stuff, is
Beautiful.
being out
Time
in
alone.
that space,
Yeah.
learning an actual real landscape.
I think a lot about what it would be like to do that kind of mind palace experiment you're talking about in prison. Like
Mhm.
when, because what they're doing is they're holding your body in form. You're going to be in this cell at this time. You're going to eat this food, this behavior, these clothes, these words. They're trying to hold the level they can get a hold of, but what they really want is the spirit. They want your behavior to change. So they're like going to fucking hold your body still, and hopefully your mind and your heart kind of follows, right?
Yeah,
But
sink in.
yeah, that's what kind of, you can literally do this shit in a prison cell. Like if they won't let your body move, do, you'd still be in touch with the same archetypes,
Yeah. Oh,
principles of learning.
100%.
Yeah.
You listen to that Roger Reeves podcast with Lex Friedman. He's been in jail for 30 years, and he talks, he married beforehand, his wife was part of his career that got him in jail,
Whoa.
waited for him through the 30 years he was in prison, and now
Yeah.
they're back he's out and talking about that and Lex has 30 minutes at the end where he actually brings the wife in and they talk together.
Whoa.
So
Whoa.
and he talks about the meaning of life and love with this couple.
So
It's
cool.
crazy. Yeah.
Scooby Doo, where are you? Scooby Doo. So when you're thinking about the earth element and you're thinking about early childhood learning, it's good to look at the kids. How are the kids solving this problem? So this is how you solve the problem of creating an earth element inside a classroom environment where you've got a few different, like you might have more people inside of. So you can have like pods, but think about what it's like to be in one of those pods while someone else here is doing something else. You've got a freedom to focus on what's important to you, and only you know what that is. If you're bored as shit with someone, you're the only one that's going to know what that is. And if you're totally fascinated by something, you're the only one that's going to know. So the earth is a crucible, an incubator, a dark womb of incubating possibility. Also, it's like you go into the darkness to kind of birth the light in a certain way. This would be like a shared cave kind of situation here in this classroom.
I like my mind's going, like, how many kids do you think that classroom with the 3 pods supports?
1, 2, 3, 4,
how
5,
much
6.
Learning? How many kids could
Depends on how
learn
interested.
efficiently
It depends on
in
how
that?
interested they are and what they're doing, and if they've got any kind of resources to express it through.
How many kids would be? Because like, all right, well,
Yeah.
if you think about like how many cows can efficiently live and thrive in a certain amount of pasture.
Is this like an educational slaughterhouse analogy that you're making here?
No. I'm just talking about well-being of animals. There
Okay.
is a limit to
A Dunbar's
yeah,
number of
when you
social
go
education.
online, they tell you your reptile needs this many square feet to thrive in, or you can only have this many fish in this size of an aquarium.
Free range humans.
Free range humans. So we take these principles all the way down to the learning environment. And what does the space, you have these 3 pods, and then you have this, special chair. All right.
Yeah.
Special chair.
Special
and
chair.
You have a space for another activity over there, but how does, like, is there an aquarium over there? So there's like,
yeah,
how many kids can spread out and have either a space that what activities can happen at the same time, but what dynamics can of all the kids playing around, like what are they sharing inside all of these spaces?
It probably has to do with the
What
trade-off
can they focus on?
between, yeah, the trade-off between the
Directly.
social development level of the student, right? So very young children can probably have short units of time where they can go deep into the earth element,
Mhm,
but then immediately they're going to have some kind of social need. So if you keep them
mhm.
kind of, if they're more dense, then maybe they can positively reinforce each other socially to keep making more, they get more attempts that way. Whereas if you
Yeah.
isolated a child of that age, they might become anxious about being away from whatever.
Right,
Then,
and
yeah,
you could play
and
with
they
that
do less
inside
learning.
these environments. That's
Yeah,
why the number of kids, how many
yeah,
kids is optimal for that space with
totally.
those different elements inside that classroom. Because the density of kids that have to occupy that space will change the dynamics of what those spaces allow those kids to get to.
Yeah,
Like if you have like a pod where you could actually get focused reading in or something like that in inside some level of chaos, there's this isolation,
yes.
these
And that
elements
you could
inside
also,
of learning.
you might also be able to create that isolatory, like if you have noise canceling headphones
Yeah,
and you've
this
got
is
like a
100% would be.
mindfold, you could stack them like corkwood and they could all be having experiences and they wouldn't even know the other one was there like a foot away,
Yeah, you
depending
would
on how,
never. Yeah,
yeah, earplugs, the ability to control the light in the environment. It's like those Vulcan learning pods, right? It's like that Vulcan learning pod, like that whole thing is like create a machine that wraps around the human or the being and teaches it everything that it needs to know at this hyper fast level so that
Mm.
it go when it's going through its language and learning acquisition mode, it just, we max that shit out. And
Right.
so this next generation of people that come in, they're just like fucking ninjas, and hopefully they got some ethics and they don't enslave us all, but
Yeah.
think about like how imagination is invoked.
Incentive to retention. That's why you have to learn capture the value. That's what we were talking about before.
Crazy.
Yes.
Fun. These are different levels of cozy here with the shag carpets and stuff, but you can see how the tactile area is important. So if you have like a workspace or a work environment, you're going to think different thoughts if you move out of the work environment, right? Like you're always saying, go to a
Mhm.
nature event, go outside, integrate with nature, be in a special place in nature that you go to a couple times or whatever. It probably, by the time kids are teenagers, like 13, 18, and that, right, those, they're going to want solo vision questy kind of things where they go away by themselves for a while in nature to kind of prove they can not die a little bit away from the family over and over, right?
Yeah.
So the way that you make earth happen, it's like you could just let your imagination do it, but you have focus, you've got some ore that you're mining in, right? You're going deeper, deeper, deeper into something. You chart your progress with a tape recorder or a journal recorder. You review that what you've done often so that that's inspiration to go deeper and also plan. Like I explored this cave of knowledge. Is there another one connecting to it? And
Right.
what would that require? Would it be any value and this kind of thing?
Yeah.
So it's a
Ways of assessing.
self-directed process.
Yeah. Assessing where you are,
Yeah.
where
And
you
this is all,
been, where you are, where you want to go.
yeah. These are all for this is all young childhood kind of stuff, but you get the idea. You could do that with adult level spaces. You could do that in in a room in your house. You could do that in half a room in your house. Or if they've locked your body down and you're in prison in some floating asteroid, you could
Yeah.
do it in your imagination.
You can. Yep. You can go anywhere with
Anywhere. That's right.
you.
That's
Anywhere
right.
with you.
Fire. So fire, you were talking about, you have a fascination with fire earlier. I agree.
Yes.
I have always loved the element of fire. I used to do Boy Scouts and I would literally spend all weekend tending fire if they'd let me.
Yeah.
I'll just do that and then just
hang
like
out right
get
there.
I'm looking
Like
for my
someone
10K,
else can do
my 10,000
something
hours in fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone like if there was a job,
Yeah.
I could handle the fire for the community.
Yo, it's such
That
a,
would be a prime. At least it would be. I probably would hate it after a while. Who knows? But
also back to that
I
earth,
like it.
back to that earth for a second.
Uh-huh.
Also, you're going to need some records to show people. Like you're gonna need to grab that gem, whatever that gem is that you're looking for, like
Yeah,
underneath it all.
forging.
Yeah.
Forging down.
You're gonna
there.
need to show it to people in a certain way.
Yeah.
And this is how, as we
That's
kind
part
of,
of the create. That's the part of the creative
yeah,
aspect. Of
you need to
Gotta
document it. So
polish it. something.
bring your calipers, bring your microscopes, bring your fMRIs, bring
Yeah.
all your tools, because you're gonna, on this journey to map this stuff out, you're going to you're gonna need all that stuff.
All that shit.
But over and over again,
Micrometers.
yeah, this a cave, you think about what a cave is, it's isolating, it's quiet down there, it's, you're electromagnetically isolated from other people, you're encountering something, maybe solo for the first time. I don't know, it's exciting. I love the earth.
Yes. Always.
It's a very cozy, warm feeling for me.
Yeah.
I feel like I've,
There's caves right near my house.
yep.
You know, there's caves everywhere.
Okay,
We're in cave country out here.
thinking about, I'm
out
gonna,
here in these woods.
now that we've
Most
got,
biodiverse, temperate rainforest in the world right here.
that's great. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's Appalachian Mountains.
Oh my God, dude, I read a couple Appalachian Mountain memoir, trails, Appalachian Mountain Trail, whatever that thing's called. That's so beautiful, dude. That is so beautiful. Okay, back to this like structured, unstructured kind of thing. When you're making progress, you are in charge always of the solo dimension. How will your earth express itself? What do you require to get earthy? And then as you go through and purify what you're finding, you're sharing what you're finding in the water element, and you're kind of working out what the value is, and then you're sharing your findings over here in fire. Eventually you're going to want air. You're going to want to, once this thing gets gem-like quality, you're going to want to stand on top of the lighthouse and plug in the gem and shine it everywhere, or release the seeds, or transmit the Morse code into the universe. So this is what's important about this. And then that's going to free you up. It's a natural process. It's going to free you up to then make another descent into the unstructured earth. Unstructured. We don't know where we're going. Air, very structured. I know exactly what I'm telling you and why. That process. Yeah.
Process around through lightning in a bottle, baby.
Lightning in a bottle. Let's do this fire. Let's do this fire situation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Back to the fire.
I spent so much time with fires in Boy Scouts. It was the best. I got good at cutting wood. I got good at stacking it. I got good at cleaning it. I got good at figuring out what was dry wood and new wood. New wood pops when it does it. I got good at arranging the rocks around it, and we got really good at doing dangerous shit, like throwing cans of beans in there. You throw cans of beans and it goes boom. People have gotten their heads taken off with this. He's like before, not us, but like you would like everyone run away, and then or you throw like CO2 cartridges in a fire, and it's just boom.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you guys are dangerous. I got you.
Yeah, this is
Good job.
unstructured 14 and 13-year-old behavior. Like
yeah,
that 12-year-old,
I see what you're
10-year-old.
saying.
Yeah.
This is why everyone was like, fire's dangerous when I was a kid.
It is dangerous.
It's like you.
It's like you. That's right. I was the
around my parents when they were kids.
I was the kid your parents were trying to keep you away from.
Yeah.
I know. I got disinvited to a lot of houses because I variously blew things up, set them on fire, destroyed them.
Yeah,
But-
it's important to be dangerous.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so this fire, if you were here watching this fire,
Speaking of fire.
speaking of the fire of creativity, this is why we need good rites of passage. Good rites of passage channel this energy in a structured way. This whole Tokorio model could be a framework for a rite of passage. Just spend time in the model around whatever's important to you, and you're going to purify something that's worth telling other people about. That probably looks like initiation. It probably looks like a decent enough initiation.
Yeah, this is like rites of passage.
Yeah,
research,
totally.
For sure.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Done right in a community, you would be initiating people all the time through whatever area they were stuck in or missed out on or whatever. Yeah. And so it would be important to keep it a cycle, which means that it gets born and then it dies. It gets born and then it dies. And that's what's nice about the Scrum cycle we're going to learn about is that you get to take in a Scrum cycle, you take these successive attempts or sprints. These are experiments, but they come to an end, and you get to at the end decide if you want to do another one. And so it's a very nice way to take risks in a containerized way. And you can also test the results of what you're doing in
Oh,
shorter
it's
doses.
track tractable proof of work.
Tractable proof of work. I love it. If you were here in front of this fire, you know how that trance you go into when you're in front of a fire? It's like it transports your type of thinking by focusing on the fire. It's like light patterns that are ancient inside our brains, and it switches on some shit. And that switching on some shit leads everybody everywhere to this, which is slow down, laugh, enjoy the good stuff, talk
Mhm.
and tell stories one person at a time is a little better. And that's universal. It happens no matter where you are. You get people together, they light some shit on fire, they get around it, and they do this kind of thing. And
Right.
then and so there is a whole way of group problem solving that is trance sponsored or trance supported. Fire and being outside and isolated and away from everything like this, it's a trance inducing state. It feels so good. And it's really powerful when you get to do it with other people. Um, that party we went to in May together, that was so much fun. And like, dude, there was nothing like being under the stars, like around the fire, like everyone's
Yeah.
crazy drunk. It was just like, holy shit. Like, this is so nuts, dude. Like,
Yes, that was fun.
it was super fun.
Yeah. It was
Uh, uh,
great. I just got to like crawl in my car and lay down with my dog and just sleep. That's
That's
like
fun.
perfect set. I love that setup for that weekend. It's
Nice.
great.
Nice.
It worked.
This is our
Just what I
archetype.
needed.
This is our archetype of the fire element, right? You think about what is the fire element? It's this transfer of heat. It's what it is. It's the sun is the ultimate expression of it. That energy, the life of the energy and the love of the sun, the light of the sun, that is given to every part of the universe, and so much just goes out there for forever. Like a very infinitesimally small amount of it falls on our planet. An infinitesimally small amount of it falls on us or on our yard or the places we can see.
Yeah.
And that energy is enough to give life to all the plants there, and to start the whole cycle of life is a collection of sunlight turning it into sugar. That's how this thing works. And so there's convection. Convection is the heating of air, and then you get hot air. There is conduction, which is the heating of a solid and the transmission of the energy of that potentiated fire. That release of vibratory motion goes through.
Right.
And then there's radiation, which happens through the medium of light. Light itself can carry heat from one place to another. And if you mix this with the other elements, you get this thing like this is a bunch of states of water. You've got liquid water, which is a certain level of organization. You got solid water, which is another level of
Nice.
density. And
And
this
all
magical,
organization / disorganization.
this magical
Right here.
property of water, that it forms these little crystals at the atomic level, the shape of a drop or a snowflake. It does that
Yeah.
atomically, and that's why its solid form floats. Think about what would happen if its solid form sunk. All of it would freeze once and go to the bottom of the ocean, and it would all become frozen eventually. But because it floats, it goes in this cycle. This
Yeah.
cycle of
It
liquid.
has this structure.
Yeah.
And it creates this structure that
Yeah.
floats down in air.
Totally, 100%. And okay, so here is fire in the middle of this thing.
Ooh, water.
Fire as the sun in the middle of this thing. And this orb of influence that the sun exerts. It's like you got gaseous water as clouds. So you got the atmosphere, which is like the gaseous form, you got the solid form, you got the liquid form, and the sun is a lot of plasma in there at the core. That's the most ionized form of water. There's no water in the sun, but the
ionization of the same
yeah.
atoms that are
Yeah,
in
and when you plasma
water.
anything, it's always just
Yeah.
atoms moving. So it's like
Yeah,
you've
so
changed
true.
shit. You've changed shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in different form, but
This
Yep.
effect that fire has on the transmission of energy, the transmission of heat energy, vibratory motion, vibration. Sound does this. If you are, my voice is a pattern exploding circles of sound waves, and it's touching everything. It's heating up every surface that it touches just a little bit. It's like a little bloop. It's touching every single surface, including the microphone. And it's being then, it touches a diaphragm, gets turned into an electrical impulse, which gets pumped into an algorithm, turned into zeros and ones, shot across the internet. Reverse the process. Zeros and ones become pulses on a speaker, and it goes into your ears. And it's like anyway, cycles of this stuff. You can see
Yeah.
all this, you can see all the elements
Move,
moving through the other ones at different times.
energy,
Okay.
loops.
So this ability to transform matter like this, that's what heat is good for. So you can purify matter. You can take these insights that you found in the veins of gold, you can melt that shit down, and then you've got this material that you can basically, it's your insight. It's like what you can make it into any form. You can do anything with it. You can Joseph Salk that shit and give away, stand on the air stage of the world and give away your vaccine so all people can be healthy and polio free.
Mhm,
It's up to you. It's really just how you want to take this refined thing, what you want to do with it.
mhm.
Sometimes there's commercial value in having a refined thing, but I think that's like 5 out of 100. Like 5. Andrew Yang described this one time, and I thought he really had a good point with this. He was like, he's trained entrepreneurs for years trying to get commercializable ideas, and what he says is, entrepreneurs are, when you are with entrepreneurs, 97 out of 100 are going to have ideas that'll never scale. They'll never be commercial, and those are ones that you're never going to get. It wouldn't be wise to put money or investment into that. This 3 out of 100 are ones that can scale, and capital invested will become more capital, and they will actually grow. However,
Mm.
entrepreneurs don't draw lines between these things. Like they most of the time they're doing it they're solving a social problem. So creativity can be a social dimension.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
want to make shit to solve problems around you, and that's like MacGyvering everything. That's really where all ingenuity kind of comes from. I'm subscribed to this Indian channel that I love. That's not in English, it's in like Hindi. But they have these repair shops in India where they like make new alternators like from scratch, and they can repair old ones, and the kinds of chemicals they're working with, they're like, there's no fucking OSHA here, but it's really creative what they're doing. They're like, they take the old copper, melt it down, strip it, forge new, reforge. They have a cast, and it's all being done in the street with like animal dung as like anyway, what I'm trying to say is it's super fun to be super creative and solve the problems around you in whatever ways that you can. Yeah.
Always.
So this refinement process we're looking for,
Yeah.
we've got like,
Molding.
yeah, this is the principle of fire, that release of energy that happens in community. You're going to make that happen. And you're gonna, this might be how fire looks. This looks a little water to me because it's like spontaneous, but if it was structured, but this is definitely this conversation, one person at a time, TV over here. This is a classroom, but it's the concept is there. You're basically being able to focus, and if you have an actual classroom, it'd be cool if you can actually get a fire. But otherwise, figuring out a way to. There might be other ways to
why
simulate
not?
trance.
No.
Yeah. You might be
Why?
have fire substitutes
Why?
that kind of can work in other ways.
Why?
Why?
Fucking
Okay.
have a fire.
So that is our
Why? Why?
fire.
Just have a fire. Why?
Fire
Real
is
fire.
structure. Exactly. A real fire.
Let's do
Danger.
real fire. Let's go.
Let's
It's
go.
important. It's responsibility.
Bird shit. I am very pro firework. I think we got to find a way to blow up more shit. So that is, fire is the structured form of social, and water is the unstructured form. So this fire and water dichotomy, water is this, it has this ability to transmit light. Water is like a tube. It can bend and move light. We've got an example of this here.
Think of like refraction.
Thinking of
You
refraction.
think like
Totally.
boat fishing. You like how or like spear fishing, or you have to calculate refraction to hit something that's below the surface of the water. It's like,
yes,
literally you have to aim like way below it in order to hit it.
Yeah, this is a laser being shined into a body of light, and then the body of water, and then the water bends the light, and so the laser is being directed down into this person's hand through this column of light, and this is that refractive it is carrying an it's slowing down the
Mhm.
light. The light here is actually moving slower in the physics example here. Like through the air, the speed of it is those photons reach you soon. These photons reach you later, and that's why this refractive bend here. Isn't that crazy?
Physics is fun. But spelled PH.
And that is
What a
that
real troll over here.
real troll over here. This is how this is. I mean, what's so amazing is that that natural light from the sun, when you open that
Yes.
up
Oh
in a prism,
yes.
you get the full rainbow of all
Yeah.
possible colors.
Like the
It's
water. The
exactly
water at certain at that aggregated constant density in that area. Get
light and
this.
photons are
The
a kind
light
of
shining through it
yeah,
gives you a rainbow.
totally. It's a
Crazy.
uh
And when you get a full one, you just have a really big ass, really big cloud of water just being suspended just like that.
when I was in my early 20s, I was traveling. I was traveling to Hawaii and I was in this mist. There was these giant ass turtles in this bay, like these big 450-year-old ones, these enormous ones. And I was walking around and I saw these turtles and they jumped in and swam out to sea. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go with these turtles. So I jumped in the water and I started to swim and I saw a rainbow in front of me. There was a mist that kind of came over, and it was this beautiful rainbow, like a double rainbow. And
Mhm.
I turned around to look back over to the beach, and the mist had already come around me, and there was a rainbow behind me. So I was literally in a sphere of rainbonic light,
Dude.
like 360, and it was like Hawaii was like holding me and like showing me, and I felt like something clicked, and I knew what color was. It was like I knew something about color got opened up for me.
Dude.
It was like,
Because of the island, the way the land
yeah,
and that you get the light
land,
at
water,
certain
light,
time at certain times of the
spiritualized.
day.
Yep.
Dude.
Yeah. Systems informed with synchronicity look like living systems, right? And so water is this skill of like surfing it, like how do you put its
Yeah.
forces to work for you?
Right.
And like how does it work? You know, water shapes like a canyon over a really long time. So water,
Yeah.
you know, that's how it really is a strong force. It's just
Yeah.
in this mercurial form.
Yes. Well, that's why skateboarding is such an art form. There's so much
Yeah.
art around skateboarding
Surfing the
culture. That's why
asphalt sea.
Jordan Peterson says don't fuck with skateboarders.
Don't fuck with skateboarders. I swerve,
Yeah.
I curve, I sway, an inch above the ground. There's all kinds of cool things going down. There's a Shel Silverstein poem. We would do the Pledge of Allegiance. We had to learn the Pledge of Allegiance, and we had to say it at the beginning of every class when I was in school. And our teachers, to kind of make it cool too, they were like, "Okay, you're doing this patriotic thing." And they also teach us a poem, and so they always had these cool poems we were learning.
Yeah, it's cool.
Dude, have you ever seen these beaches? These agate beaches?
No, I haven't, but I've seen water like we had in that last picture.
Beautiful. That water over time takes anything and it smooths it down, like these smooth stones, but also agate is a kind of volcanic glass. And so there are literally beaches in this world that are all these little beach sand pebbles on the beach. And
Yeah,
it's
I want to
just,
go to those beaches.
that's on my bucket list. It's like one of two
Yeah.
things on my bucket list. Like,
Yeah. No, my grandmother used to collect sand, or my great grandmother used to collect sand from all sorts of different beaches. And they like were missionaries in like Thailand
oh,
and stuff
wow.
like that.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
they were missionaries that traveled all over the world.
Very cool. If you think about the social dynamics of it, water is also life. And so everybody needs to go to the fountain of life, and water coming out of the ground from underground pressure makes a fountain. Water going back to the ground makes a waterfall. It's like the transmission of water
Where the
through.
hell is that, dude? That
Oh, that
waterfall.
waterfall? I don't know. I got that image somewhere.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Beautiful, right? You kind of like feel the
Yeah.
movement of energy. Like
Well, you
some
see how the rocks are falling in like this, like there's columns in that in
yeah,
the carbon of that rock, and it's
yeah,
falling down in cubes at the bottom, but it has all the structure, and then a waterfall coming off of it.
totally.
Holy shit.
that, the water could be like Jesus talked about that, the water of life. He's like, hey, the people who drink this real water I'm talking about, you're never going to be thirsty again. I think that's contact with the fountain inside of us,
Mhm.
the perfect vessel of water that, it's like a vessel metaphors are, I think, a good way to think about the body. The body being a vessel for the soul, the light body being the vessel for God at the heart, the source of light at the heart of it, all that synchronicity.
Hmm,
Yeah.
dude.
The, a lot of I was just listening to a person talk about their ayahuasca experiences with the shuar in Ecuador, and they would take them to these very sacred waterfalls to them, and they would go into the waterfalls and let the water touch them, and the spirit of that place had been so enlivened by the people and the natural systems there that it would take all of the stuff, it would basically flush out their pipes, and all the extra stuff would float down river and be transformed by the natural environment there, and all those energetic signatures and such, and then they would be a little clearer when they did their ayahuasca and went through their religious experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a little better
dude.
prepared. And then there's this principle of water where we don't quite know. It's like the unconscious mind, right? It's like the shadow in the
Hmm.
water. What is in those
The
depths?
depths, you can drown.
You can drown. Also sharks, etc.
Mhm.
It's
Sharks.
fears go into this area.
Imagination too. There's a lot of
Imagination.
imagination in water.
Totally. Totally. It's kind of interesting to think about. And so you make the solo axis, earth air work. You get to design those. And what's cool is you can compare notes with other people. Maybe occasionally invite someone in your cave, occasionally invite someone on your air stage or whatever, and the
Mhm.
broadcast there. But on the social one, you always have to make those with other people. So you need a framework to do that, to have that conversation and to figure out what's the protocol? What's the communication protocol we're going to use to interact with each other, water to fire, unstructured to structured social. And you set those ground rules, and you got to make sure they're enforced. And they can be simple things or they can just be principles. But in any event, there's
Yeah.
to take care of those spaces and to make them work, you have to set boundaries, and you have to come up with what are the activities and the protocols and whatever happens inside of here.
Yes. Set the boundaries, bro.
Set the boundaries, define it. But it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's like you're building a stage with other people. It's like, what kinds of things do we want to do on this
Yeah.
stage?
Just
You know?
drawing, bro. We're
Yeah.
drawing, but we're drawing in dimensions now.
Drawing in
We're
dimensions. Have,
learning to draw in arcs over time.
so in a certain way, what you could think of it as, fire produces the trance state, the signal, the light signal, but water carries it. It's the social experience with other people that actually amplifies the basic trance inducing qualities of that process. So have you ever used a tumbler, like a rock
A
tumbler?
rock tumbler. Yeah.
This is what
Yeah.
you get. You get this
Yep.
is the
That.
universe is a rock tumbler. The universe is
Mhm.
taking hard things and through forces making them into softer and softer and softer things when all
Yeah.
those forces collide with each other, right?
That's
Yeah.
that's why this is like that's why there's all these metaphors of sand in the Bible and like time and
Sand and time.
sand
Yeah.
and time and quantity
Yeah.
and
Grains of sand.
weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Expressions of weight, essentially.
It's very Buddhist because it's like it's what it's the Buddhists are just like, hey, whatever you got now, it's gonna change. Just hang in there a sec. Like it's all just about time scales. Mountains become beaches over time.
Over time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that's
Yeah.
that also says something too about that earth element and that exploration deeper in. It's like this can take a long time. Like it doesn't, it's all about you are the keeper
Yeah.
of the time in that place
Well,
because it's that
we are
solo
the
dimension.
keeper, yeah, in this dimension, but then we also have this planetary dimension that we do
Share.
somehow impact and share.
Yeah.
And how does the regulation of that, how does the synchronization, what happens when things synchronize? Because I feel like during the lockdown,
Yeah.
everyone went into their house and there's all these like
Yeah.
fringe negatives to that and a lot of negatives, but like I traveled around Southern California this past winter it was clear as fuck in LA first on certain days, and I know I've been in LA other times in my life, and it was gross.
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 But this winter, like everybody, the lockdown and COVID
Yeah,
and traveling around Southern California, it was like so easy
so
compared
easy.
to other times I've been there. And it was so clear. The environment was so clear. And that's always been something that's been debated and put on the stage, and nasty cities and what is pollution, what are we doing,
Yeah, yeah,
and how fast does our environment rebound when we kind of
yeah,
switch our tones, and what are our tones, or
yeah.
what levers on tones do we have?
It's like the inner and the outer synchronizing. Like all of the inner states of the people change, and so for the behavior changes, and so the impact changes, and so the environment
Mhm.
changes. That's like pretty much a
Right.
causal link between a very
Right.
inner state of consciousness and an outer expression, right?
Right.
Yeah,
It's a consensus too. It
yeah.
could be a consensus energy.
3 days after, or for
That's why
5.
it's powerful. It's why governments like these
Yeah, a
types of
good
offerings.
leader would like get the rhythm going. A good
Yeah.
government would get the people's rhythm going. They're like, technology is going like this, and we're going like this, and these are our old traditions, and these
Yeah.
are our new traditions, and this is what
Exactly.
we got
But
to do
they're
to take
not
care
gonna
of
do
people,
that.
and
They're
this is what we
not
got to
gonna
do with
do
other shit.
that. They're
Yeah.
not gonna do that. So other people
They are
will.
incentivized to not have a rhythm and be like, oh, we're trying to tune up our instruments, and we're trying to decide
No.
if we want an oboe over here. It's like play music or die, motherfuckers.
They're
Like,
yeah. That's the thing. It's third generation warfare or whatever. That's the tools are obsolete now. All right. There's
it's supposed to update, and it's not
Yep.
updating
It
because it's
doesn't
fucking
update. Well,
captured,
because it's not even that it's captured. It's
incentivized to be
just
slow.
that literally the tools now, the tools available have changed.
Yeah.
Literally, invention of tools available have changed.
Everybody forgets this, but Obama got into office because it was 2008 and there was early Facebook and like not even barely Twitter. No, I didn't think Twitter was out there. It 2009, but like he got in based on social media and on using that new thing. And now they're trying to lock it down and be like, this will be the communication platform to rule all
Right.
time. And it's like, what's coming
Democrats
next?
figured out the Democrats figured out how it worked, and
Yeah.
that's why Hillary's been like all of a sudden like came out and she's
Confident.
whipping
Oh,
whipping
we're
stuff
totally
together.
gonna win. We're
But
totally
then
gonna win.
we're like, oh wait, no, you can think your shit is all locked up, but technology changes,
Changes.
and now we
Yeah.
can get that shit.
Yeah.
And now we can read the other side of the story, and that's that we're
The press
learning
is
about
free.
our
We're
technology.
freeing these
Yep.
presses. This
Yep.
press is now liberated.
We invented a communication technology.
Yeah.
So and
Earlier,
that's developing, and we didn't have any accountability technology. The
right.
accountability technology came in 2009.
Right. Like
When
higher degrees of transparency are being forced. And they're like, hey, we need to stop all that projection of information. That's like the whole Snowden thing and the whole Julian Assange thing. It's like, we're going to solve this problem by putting people in jail. It's like, yo, what if there's actually a problem you have to solve? And this is all you not solving that problem. Like, what
exactly,
if the big problem was they pointed out something that was real?
That's exactly what's happening to you. But what happened in 2009
Yeah.
was that was the Bitcoin.
Right.
That's when Bitcoin came out. This is a new structure that now we're just developing and playing with. This is a new technology.
Liberate
of
new kinds of
accountability.
interactions. Totally.
Yep, accountability
Yeah.
on the internet.
We were talking earlier about trauma and we got talking about the vagus nerve, and like that's the really cool stuff when we get into heart math, is that the breathing patterns, the social rhythms that you set with other people, many times those are related to shared trauma or shared stress. Like people from a certain part of the world went through things together and they share like a rhythm that strong events, both positive and negative, get encoded in our hormonal makeup and in the literal hormonal loops that our body goes through. The circadian rhythm is the loop that we're
Yeah.
always going through. So anyway, that shit's gonna be fascinating to get into. I just had a note here
Yes.
because it was like there you can watch trauma get encoded and unencoded with that heart math stuff. You can watch it. You can watch new patterns get encoded and you can watch old ones get replaced. And COVID, that lockdowns just broke every pattern, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Dude. Yep. And on top of that, yeah, so like you got an increase in formal government presence as these social media platforms that everyone is on react and
Yeah.
and features inside of these ecosystems change. And there's all these new voices that pop up everywhere. It's
There's this, I'm really gonna find this Wired article because I brought it up like 3 or 4 times. But like there was this Wired article was like they're asking 10-year-olds like, what kind of Facebook, what do you use for social media? And there's like this, I use Snapchat. Like, what about Facebook? Oh, Facebook, it's for teachers and narcs. Everybody, when they capture these systems, it's gonna be like, oh, that
Yeah.
one's for teachers and narcs. And they're going to do we make rules. There cannot be other forms of communication other than the ones we can control. Meanwhile,
Right.
people are just like, dude, if you're monopolizing that one, teachers and narcs, it's like they're gonna make another one where they can actually have the freedom to make the expression that they wanted to make.
Yeah.
But we solved all this with the First Amendment. First Amendment solved all these problems but the courts interpret it, and those are slow and broken too.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Oops.
we talking, oops, more black, got coal dust on our noses.
Yeah, cold out here all of a sudden.
Totally. Totally. Okay, let's talk about air because this is actually a
Yeah.
hopeful thing.
Yes.
Air is the element
Good
that we all share.
transition.
We share this with
Get a
each other.
breath out here.
Let's get a breath out here. We share this with everything. The reason why plants can use air as a transmission medium is because the other plants and the places they need to be are connected to that air. Air is connected to the most stuff. And so when you're at the highest place, you can see through the most air. You can't see through earth at all. You can kind of see through water. Light itself will blind you, but air is the transmission medium.
Mhm.
And it's how we get each other sick when we're in a biological kind of environment.
Mhm.
It's also how, speech is our most complex form of evolved communication that we have. Like
Right.
it's probably one of the richer ones. You can do stuff in all mediums, but the plant at the end of its life cycle, it broadcasts its genetic information in the hopes that it will live on beyond the physical body. And I think that is the basis of a good TED Talk, for example. Like I had to stop watching TED Talks for a while because they got so damn formulaic. But like I watched like 10 TED Talks and I was like, that was like the same talk 10 times. It was like, it wasn't even that varied.
Yeah.
I had to bail on them. But that concept of the stage, that you are broadcasting your distilled ideas out into the universe, and hopefully it triggers or synthesizes something else, seems to be
Mhm.
part of the learning process. When you learn enough shit, you get to a point where to continue your own learning, you have to pass it on. It's like you've got to show another person what you're doing to learn more things because you've mastered you in
Yeah.
that medium or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. In order to extract any more value out of this information, you have
Yeah.
to share it.
There was a group
You have
called
to
the
shine your light.
Shine your light. You got to shine that light. And that's what you do on that. That's what you do on that stage. You like,
Mhm.
you can broadcast from a
You
high place.
signal.
That's right. That's right. Anytime
Yeah.
you're signaling, you put it, the cell phone towers, they go on the highest points. The was in the Hobbit when they light fires from mountain to mountain, like that is at the highest places.
Mhm.
There's something there about it being the top of a mountain and then the earth element and the air element being kind of related. This is a
Mhm.
project called the Global Village Construction Set. And what they did is they created this entire array of machines, one basic part at a time. And so if your society goes away, like you have a catastrophic event, this is how you can reboot. This machine here is making bricks for use in building a house. And you can essentially make this by following their open source guides and directions. And so they identified all the basic moves that you would need to get agriculture going or basic smithing and shop work. And they published this thing as this giant chunk of data that if you put it on something that like print it, you can like put it on a medium.
Civilization starter kit.
Civilization starter kit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And this is to me the ultimate engineering air
Yeah.
project. They only have built
Right.
some of these. They have plans for like, they need money. They always,
Yeah.
grants money would help.
Civilization is the distance between man and his functions.
Wow, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I love that. I love that they're thinking, it's such a nice project too, because when you think that way, you're sort of reducing everything down to its very basics and like, what are the essential building blocks of our society? And
Mhm.
what would we lose if we lost, supply chain or whatever?
Right.
This is the relationship of air to land to sun to light to water. In the morning when you're by the sea, the air is cooler over there over the sea, and so it will push in under the warm air, which goes out to sea. It creates this kind of
Yeah,
movement.
cycle.
Yeah, you can see and of course that's
Like
all.
cloud patterns change.
This is all started by the
different-
sun. The sun and heat, the transmission of radiant heat, light heat heats up that earth faster, and so it gets warmer, and then it heats it up cooler. It's the opposite thing happens at night. The land is cooler, the sea is warmer, that warm air comes in, there's always an outgoing breeze. So
Yeah.
air is what this connection is, this connective force between things. This is it demonstrating those principles. And it also is like this air is what you transmit, like this lighthouse metaphor through, which John D. Coke came up with in that early Apple book. This idea that, you've got this beacon that you can send out. And if you combine it with your earth, you can get your gem, you can refine it, you can put it in the lighthouse, you can broadcast out. It's a
Yeah.
very, lighthouses keep
Bum,
ships
bum,
at
bum,
sea
bum,
safe.
bum, bum, bum. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's your network.
That's your network.
Yeah.
Totally. So we've got the fifth element. We can
This is our
always
decentralized network, baby.
decentralized network. We can always do that one another time.
No, it's the same thing.
The electrical element that connects it all is fascinating. It's such
Yep.
a good one.
It's the same thing.
Whew. This is our lucky number 7. I was going to tell you those UFO stories. Maybe we're out of steam. Do we need Scooby-Doo? Or do we need to determine? We've been going for hours.
We could Scooby Doo. I'm down to
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby Doo and come back and do.
Where
some
are you?
stories.
Woo!
Yeah, let's go. That's the drop. That's the drop.
That's the drop. So this we were talking about, the fifth element. Now you're kind of getting a sense of how these forces are sort of hanging on this framework that we've got. The next one is the element that connects them. And this is the thing about E. Everything is connected at this energetic level. It's a very basic level in our universe. And at the molecular level, it is the E bonds that actually make molecules possible. And of course, we are much more complicated than just these, but that same E is the energy that is used in a different way to pattern neurons in our brains. So in one sense, E is the actual paintbrush that we're using to paint our neural connections that let us communicate and coordinate activity and thoughts at all, which is kind of like shape coordination when we're talking about that other thing. And it's also this direct thing. Like the E is there's just one electron out there, and it's all waving at the same time. And we're made of it. We're literally our atomic level is made of it, and it's in resonance with this other stuff.
Yes.
And so the word for that at the heart of our model is Tokorio, and it's this very specific techne, art or craft, core, the heart, and creo, to create. And it's this natural process that every learner gets into with an intrinsic from within motivation. So autonomy, mastery, purpose from the inside out, and then the way that you motivate extrinsically is through compensation or punish or reward. And you can see that you can get caught on one side of this equation. And if you're caught on one side of this equation you only do things when there's an externally prompted reason to do so, you're gonna I don't know, you're probably not gonna be in a state of awe and wonder with your life, right? If you can, but it as like a theme. But you've got I like to dabble in both. I like to have very external reasons for doing some things, such as income and career and things like this. And it's worth it to build those things and to maintain those and to be professional at work. And it's also worth it to have hobby level or personal core level exploration that can go beyond.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
the sort of way that this plugs in is the heart is that E engine in the body. The first organ that gets developed is the heart. The heart starts pumping first. When the heart starts
Mhm.
pumping, it's
Sets the
partially,
tone.
it sets the tone. It sets the
Sets
rhythm and the
rhythm.
tone of growth. The rhythm of
Everything
electromagnetic
else.
energy delivery is this is
Everything
pulsing,
else.
this pulsing heart.
Yeah.
And that is what animates the fountain from the inside out. This interface in our heart, love itself, that is connecting us to other people.
It's
And
the
so,
it's the rhythm,
yeah,
the most energetic, like
yeah,
constant, electrically intense
that's it.
organ in your body.
And if all this information, the shape is written down somewhere, it's written down in some kind of electromagnetic language, right? And it might be that like a heart pulsing, it might be our main way that we connect with each other. That momentary burst of energy from the toroidal muscles of the heart contracting, that is squeezing life into us one beat at a
Yeah.
time.
And it's it's like as the resonation between your hearts. That's that's how these different experiences, like learning, can be catalyzed, I think, with this type of energy. When it happens together, two or more are gathered. What's the heck's up with that? Hey,
Exactly.
that's
Two or
fine.
more,
Go away.
exactly. You got it. It's that E that connects us with two or more are
Uh-huh.
gathered. And there's lots of ways that we encode those electrical signals in our hormone, in our nervous system responses to each other. That's the stuff we're going to get deep in when we you, me, and Bruno get together. We're gonna do a deep dive into some of that stuff. But I also wanted to tell you about UFOs. We wanted to see. So, have you ever
Check
had an
it off.
experience of a UFO?
Nope.
Have you ever seen anything in the sky that freaked you out and you couldn't explain?
Nope. I
Nope.
haven't.
It's all
No.
good in the hood. The I got into, I had some kind of flashy memories of UFOs from as a young child. And there was something like that going down somehow on some level where I grew up in a farm in Western Kansas. And so I always had an interest in it. And I pursued this thing called the Flower of Life, and I became a Flower of Life facilitator in my early 20s. And it took a couple years of traveling down to Mexico and taking classes and swimming with dolphins and doing a bunch of other crazy shit. But I learned how to activate the light body Merkaba for myself, and then how to teach people this technique that came from this guy named Drunvalo Melchizedek, and how to basically pass on this. It was more like an initiation. And it was cool. I thought it was going to be the thing I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was like really excited about it. And it turned out the universe had another plan for me and had me shift gears quite abruptly. And in this, I joined a Christian mystical community, and I had to renounce all the other stuff that I was doing. So I wasn't able to pursue that for a period of time. But it always informed my thinking, and I kind of kept in my head there. But the two the community that I was in for that was also connected to this community that was also into UFOs and channeling and some other stuff that I kind of got into, but not as deeply. But so anyway, I got a chance to reflect on UFOs a lot in my 20s and do these light body kind of group practices with a bunch of other people doing our light bodies together. And then we thought about when we sort of turn our attention towards UFOs, there would be experiences that kind of happen. But actually, that's the more advanced one. The more benign one, that's my
Do you
first.
think that was related to, like, could that be related to, like, places on Earth where
Yeah.
there's
Memory.
like harmonic resonance?
Yeah. Memory with positions of the sun and the moon, certain times of the year. Yeah. Shape memory from experience. And yes, there is where am I going with that thought?
And probably where monuments were.
Right.
Was the last time the Earth got
Yeah.
fucked up.
The place
and there used to be resonance. Now we have resonance in different areas, probably in different. They require different approaches.
Right. Well, what I find
different dimensions, probably.
when I went through my study, like a personal study of this over
Playing
years,
with resonance inside of our
there is
our planet as we get.
There
hit
is a
by shit out
common
of the sky.
there's this thing that happens with UFO sightings, and it kind of goes like this. A lot of the UFO stories, you only hear about some of them, and some of them never have pictures, which you'll never hear about, or audio or anything else. There's just no recording devices. It's just some stories that people have that from something that
Yeah.
happened. And after,
This is completely experiential.
yeah, here's how it
to
usually goes.
me.
It's like you're hanging out with your friends and you're somewhere remote. You're like in the Amazon, or you're somewhere where there's just not a lot of electrical activity. There's not a lot of power lines or whatever. And it's just you, and you're really in the rhythm of your kind of people. And it's like something happens and you guys get drawn away from your village or whatever. It's like some kind of bright light or whatever. And then it starts to, the stories never make it back from there. It's more like what ends up happening is whatever they're experiencing is so clear to them in that state that nobody thinks about taking pictures or writing shit down. It's just, it's like they're in a collective, oh my God, the world is going to be so much different. It's like, there's
Yeah.
no, it doesn't, it looks more like a group trance state. And yet there is this contact with something that's wasn't there before. And the only thing you have left when you kind of come back is these people transformed in some way, and then some kind of fragmentary kind of stories. And and nobody believes them. And within 12 hours, they don't even believe themselves. They're like,
Yeah.
that was so fucking weird. That didn't really happen, right? There's no fucking way that happened.
Trip. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a dream state. It's like waking up from a dream state, which means it might actually have something to do with DMT release and higher dimensions and a technology that has the ability to sort of bridge levels
Yeah.
inside of us or something. God knows,
Right.
But in any event, a lot of time, I think the altered state of consciousness with aliens makes a lot of sense because of Rick Strassman's work in DMT, the spirit molecule. He gave people intravenous DMT, and when that happened, they all reported very similar experiences. And a lot of it was ET stuff. Like, I'm awake in an operating room and I'm in another dimension and the ETs are around me or something. That's what, like, a lot of them brought back those kinds of stories. Like they were unplugging from the matrix for a second or something with this massive intake of dream chemical, essentially.
Mhm.
And it freaked them out. And they didn't know how to handle it. It was like, what the fuck? It's like a universe. It's like, because like a dream, it is convincingly real reality. It's like, it's real. It's for you in that moment. It's real. And this moment, you will have trouble explaining what this moment is like when you're in your dream,
Yeah.
in a certain way.
Yep.
But anyway,
Different speeds.
different speeds.
Different
So-
speeds, bro.
Okay.
Different,
This one
different
time,
dimensions.
I was living in Kansas City, Missouri, and I had my 91 Ford Ranger truck, and I was going to visit a friend at
You had a
a
91 Ford Ranger.
it was the best. It was an amazing car. It had
Dude,
a shell
my
over the back.
first truck.
Yeah.
My first car was a 92 Ford Ranger.
Oh man, that's awesome. Was it stick shift?
Yes.
Totally mine too.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. I love that car. I drove that car into the ground. I changed the transmission twice and I was like, this isn't worth it. A third time.
Yeah.
But in any event, okay. I park my car, I get out, I'm visiting a friend, and I think this is right. Anyway, the circumstance is fuzzy, but and then I just kind of, something just tells me, and I look over my shoulder and I look, and there's this thing in the sky. And this thing looks like a triangle shaped something. It's gliding across the sky. Like, it's not making any noise. It's not making it, there's no thrusters. There's like lighter spots on the bottom of it, but it's this triangle shape and it's just sliding across. And this voice inside my head says, enjoy it. It's a UFO. And I just enjoy it. And it just slides over the trees and it's fucking gone. And I was like, whoa, like what in the fuck was that? I was like, and I realized in the moment, I was like, no one's going to believe me. Like, that's crazy. And then I did a little research on it. And that one is actually kind of common. It's called a TRS. And it's some kind of, it gets photographed occasionally. And it is some kind of military nuclear craft. Like the theory goes, it has a nuclear reactor of some kind on it, and it uses that massive amount of energy it produces to somehow bend gravity, and it can support itself with a nuclear cushion in a certain way. This one's a fake one, but that's kind of what it looked like. And it was so very wild because it was definitely, it was definitely like, I could see where it was like people could maybe have done it, but also I was like, but the way it was being run, and let's just say you had a nuclear triangle shaped spacecraft, why are you flying it over Barnes and Noble, man? Like, what's wrong
Yeah.
with you? Like, is it weird that I can see it and people just ignore it? It's like, clearly
Yeah.
it's being operated by someone who wouldn't understand what this would mean.
Yeah. It seems like it.
Like, not us.
Yeah. It's
Like, if
just like skirting on by here.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it did not feel like it was under
never
human
comes through
control. Yeah,
here.
it
Yeah,
just
it's
just
like
it's just like, it's like, holy shit. It's like, and it did feel like it was kind of pushing space out of its way, and it was just like coasting on. So I was just like, Jesus, like, whatever. That's so crazy. So that was one experience I had. This other one is gonna just, it defies belief a little bit, but I'll kind of set the stage. When I was down in Mexico and I was studying this light body stuff, the wife of one of the men who, my friend Ron Holt, who taught a lot of the program with his wife Lisa Holt. Lisa Holt wrote books about UFOs and aliens, and she had these books titles with books like Visitors from Within. And so her thing was all about, it's an inner experience. Contact is an inner experience, and it can happen like sort of inside of oneself, and because it's a state of consciousness, more or less. So this is the kind of thinking I was around and such. And I went to like a week-long retreat where we studied the light body, advanced stuff, and how to pass on some of the techniques and such. And then there was like a little 3-day extra where you could stick around for, and we talked about UFOs and about channeling and other kinds of things. And so I was sort of experiencing this larger definition of what that might be about, and what that's
yeah,
kind of
where
like.
were you?
I was in the mountains of Mexico at a oh God, what is the ecstatic group up there? They're Islamic Sufis. It was a Sufi retreat center up in the mountains of Mexico.
Okay.
And we were
Sufi.
sort of renting a couple of cabins in this one place where we met and ate.
Right,
And it
cool.
was people from all over the world. There were people from Argentina, there's people from Mexico, there's people from Scandinavia, Russia. It was like a real international kind of group of people. I was the crazy kid from the US, and there was maybe one other person from the US, but it was really fun. It was a very nice, it was like a modern mystery school. The subject matter was the light body and its use and mastery. And it was a very fun experience. I've always missed participating in those kinds of things since.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, if someone has a woo-woo alarm, I just tripped every bell it has.
There you go.
Because all of these things I'm describing are very much internal things,
Yeah.
and they're kind of internal pursuits.
It's a
So
new language.
it's a new
alright?
language.
It's a
But
new language.
I would just
To
ask,
treat it like that.
if anybody you just have to ask the person, are you really experiencing that or not? Because if they're really experiencing it, that means something. If they're just hoping to experience it or whatever, that's a different thing. So
You need
this
to
was,
analyze your experience.
yeah, just objectively, just, was that real or
You
not?
can do it.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it's,
you make your own decisions.
yeah,
Yeah,
make your own decisions. We're just saying, listen.
yeah. Right. Have the autonomy to make that
We'll
inner
dance on
definition.
this topic over time.
Right. That's right. So that's what this is all about, because essentially this story is a story of kind of straying off of our universe a little bit. But I went to this beautiful experience. It was very nice. I came home, and as I came home, when I was on the experience, I had a sort of a contact with like an extraterrestrial or something like this. It was like a channeling kind of experience. Not entirely pleasant. I don't recommend people pursue this kind of stuff, because spirits are beings without bodies. Some have a good reason for that, and some are just lost. And this whole process of letting other things inside you, it's like, whoa, red flag. Like, I was young and dumb and sort of more spiritually open, and had some. I actually think that sometimes people do it in a very harmonious and beautiful way. I've seen it done very beautifully, and I've also seen it done in ways where I'm just kind of like, that seems like it's not going to be super helpful. But it's the kind of thing where if you're in those kinds of circles, you just have to make your own
Yeah.
choices and decisions. And
Yeah.
honestly, responsibility comes back to yourself anyway. You're in charge of your life. It's yours. Like, you've actually got to make these decisions for yourself.
Mhm.
So in any event, I go home. And I, while I'm having that experience, I do a little bit of channeling, and I channel the name of this chemical, and it was EDTA. Edward does time always. And I wrote this down, and I had this recorded. I was in front of a bunch of people when I did this thing, and I worked in vitamins and nutrition. I worked at an online vitamin retailer at the time, and I researched it, and I figured out it's an oral chelator. And what it's useful for is if you're exposed to strong chemicals, like I was exposed to fertilizers and pesticides when I was a child,
Mhm.
because I grew up on a farm, and you can get different molecules deep in your cells, and your body doesn't have any chemistry to dig them out. So when you take an oral chelation agent, and everybody should be super careful with this because I've heard horror stories about people doing it wrong. You should research the fuck out of it and do it small first or whatever. But or what happens is when you take a chelation agent, the chelation agent bonds with the foreign chemical, and then your body can bond with the chelation agent. So it gives it a handle to pull it out.
Get
So
it
you
out.
can use a chelator, like when I was first started learning how to shoot a shotgun, I would come home and be covered in lead, and I'd sort of get this kind of lead toxicity. I would take a little EDTA, and it would clean out some of the lead that I was feeling when I wasn't really washing my hands with a lead de-leading soap like you're supposed to.
Mm.
So in any event, it's a useful tool, but what it kind of did is when I came home and I took it, it was like all this other stuff inside of me was like chaff. It's this metaphor from World War I and II, like when they first had radars, World War II. They would fly planes over and they would drop strips of mylar, like mylar balloon. They would drop it all over the place. And then the radar signals, which were primitive, would bounce around and it would fuck up the instruments. They couldn't do it.
Mhm.
So it was like these heavy metals in me were like a type of chaff. It was like a
Yeah.
type of heaviness that was just
So
always
it's
there.
something that you could feel somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, it had just
Yeah.
been with me most of my adult life. It was like background noise. And so this first kind of spiritual contact experience I had with channeling, I got this name of this chemical and I took it. And when I took it, it's like all that stuff got lifted out of me. And it was really noticeable to me. And I was good at detoxing and I was good at fasting and I could do little cleanses and stuff like that. And so I was getting everything out of me. And there was this one afternoon that my energy was so high that I felt like, and plus it was all light body stuff. I felt like I tuned my antenna to some really strong station and I just pressed go and was like, like just sending out some love vibration, just like a signal.
Mhm.
And I was like, ha, I felt alive and full of life and it was beautiful. And when that happened, I saw something see me do it. And I saw it get its attention and I saw it come my way. And I was like in this inner state and I wasn't doing any drugs at all. This is completely sober.
Yeah.
I hadn't smoked weed for years, acid for years, anything like that. And I was like, oh, this is like on the natch. And this is why the natch is so dangerous. I'll explain why. But in any event. So I felt this thing coming. And my wife and I are in our home and we're relaxing and I knew it was going to be coming outside. And so I said, oh, there's something coming. And she's like, wait, what the fuck? What are you? Because we were just kind of there like meditating and like praying together. And I went outside and I felt it coming and then it came over the horizon. And it was a helicopter that was spinning. It was black as shit, black as night. And it was spinning, but it was so low to the ground, it didn't disturb the trees. It was a device that was flying with the air. It looked like a helicopter, but it didn't disturb the air around it. It was like and then what it did is it saw me and it stopped and it was like, what? And I was like, what? And it was like, and then it went around my property 3 times and then stopped. And then I got up really close to it and I stared into it. And what I felt like I saw was, it was partially human, but it was also partially machine. And the machine human combo was somehow super powerful. And I had like tripped some kind of sentry. And I was just saying, I said, I'm of no harm. I'm not here to hurt you. And I was saying this inside and I was saying it outside. My wife, by the way, freaking the fuck out. She's like, get inside. What are you doing? Like, don't talk to it. What the fuck, dude? It's like talking to some kind of bulldog or something, like an AI crazy ass machine-based bulldog. And my wife freaked the fuck out. And she was like, she was very mad at me. And she was very terrified because she just watched me walk outside and this thing happened to me, like this experience. And I prayed my way through that. And then I saw I was trying to figure out what it was. And it was like there was a human pilot and it was supported by this intelligence that was grand and spooky.
Huh.
Yeah. And then it flew away. And None of my neighbors came out. No one was disturbed by the air. And then I thought about what that would look like an actual helicopter in a neighborhood, the sound it would make, the disturbance of the trees. It's like, it was this weird amalgam of, there was something from another dimension that was there with me. My wife saw it, freaked her the fuck out. But it wasn't really there in a certain way.
Yeah.
But it was like, if there was other people with us on our vibe, they probably would have experienced it too. For me, it was 100%
Yeah.
real. There was no difference
Yeah.
between that and reality.
That's,
And it was,
yeah. That's what it really is. And the connection with your partner too.
yeah, love.
At
Love saves
least
the day.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
your just journeys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And it was a kind of an initiation, because what it sort of taught me was, okay, this light body stuff is super powerful. Clearly you're in some kind of multiverse and you can pop into the thing next door or whatever. And you can do it on a physical level with enough Merkabah training and tuning of this thing. It's like, it was a big, like, okay, we're going to play it a little easier. Like, we're not going to make ripples in the waves that the neighbors might get upset about. This kind of shit, right? You're like, you live next to other dimensions of conscious beings that might not even exist on your timeline, but that have technology, and their technology can reach you in your world if they choose to, but usually they don't. And so it's like, yeah, something along these lines.
Well, curious.
Curious, right?
Love to, continue
To be continued.
to be
Yeah.
continued.
Dude,
on
happy
there.
7th anniversary. Seventh anniversary of the
Seventh
Curiosity Engine.
podcast.
Seventh
Yeah.
turning of the wheel. This is a great time
Yes.
we're gonna get underneath the hood and we're gonna rewire the whole thing, and we've got some plans and some explorations, and it's been super fun.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.
Super fun. Talk to you soon.
Woohoo!
Bye.
Bye.